Will the meeting of the Planning and... We're ready? Okay. Will the meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission for Wednesday, April 4th, 2017, please come to order. For the benefit of those who have not participated in a Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, our procedures are as follows. We will read the legal call of the meeting as published in the local newspapers. The applicant will be invited to come forward and present the case, explaining to the Commission and others present what is being requested of the property. Comments of town agencies will be read for each application if there are any. There will be clarifying questions from the Commission. Then there will be an opportunity for clarifying questions from the audience. First, those who wish to support the application may come forward, and second, those who wish to oppose the application will then be invited to come forward and express their opinion. As this is a public hearing, as this public hearing must be recorded, it is necessary for speakers to identify themselves and state their name and address before addressing the Commission. The applicant is then free to leave or remain for the balance of the public hearing and the regular meeting, at which time the Commission will try to reach a decision on each application. Each applicant will be notified in writing as to the decision of the Commission and has a right to appeal to the Superior Court if desired. Decisions of the meeting are available the day after the meeting by calling the Planning and Zoning Office 453-8039 after 9 a.m. Seated this evening are the following members: Sean Kylesgrove, Matthew Yorzinski, I'm Josh Hirschman, Alan Brown, Phil Johnson, and Scott Edmonds. Staff present are George Quarl, Lisa Piambino, and the videographer is Peter Schultz. The secretary will now read the legal minutes or notice.
Notice is hereby given that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on April 4th, 2018 at 7:30 p.m. at location Nathaniel B. Green Community Center, 32 Church Street, Guilford, Connecticut, Mononkatuk Room, 2nd floor, for the following purposes. Baldwin & Baldwin, LLC, 270 Old Quarry Road, Map 12, Lot 78A, Zone R5, Coastal Area Management, to build a 10 by 20 by 10 foot high storage shed on 6 10-foot concrete piers, Section 273-91. William Ghazi, 601 Westlake Avenue, Lot 2, Map 89, Lot 14-2, Zone R7, special permit approximately 750 SG feet, accessory apartment, construction of an accessory apartment to a single-family new construction home, Section 273-19. U-Haul, 301 Boston Post Road, Map 49, Lot 30 and 31, Zone TS, special permit and site plan, motor vehicle rental and self-storage facility and permit and special permit. Change of nonconformity pursuant to Section 273-13, Section C, Section 273-19, Section 273-97. Copies of these applications are available for inspection in the office of the Planning and Zoning Commission, Town Hall South, 50 Boston Street, Guilford, Connecticut. At this hearing, persons may attend and be heard, and written communications will be received. Dated at Guilford, Connecticut, this 12th day of March, 2018. Frank D'Andrea, Chairman.
Okay, first up is Diego Tomasi. Is that, okay. The first up is the recommendation of the Planning Committee.
Yes, this is the second hearing on this application. It was discussed at the last meeting. You'll recall this is a recommendation of the Planning Committee. This is pursuant to their work regarding the coastal management updates and updates of the zoning code with regard to compliance with flood hazard protection requirements. This particular amendment allows for buildings to be that might be non-conforming with regard to setbacks to be elevated to the extent and only to the extent required by the flood damage prevention ordinance without the need to obtain a variance. So if the flood damage prevention ordinance requires that a building be elevated and that building is non-conforming with regard to any of the setback requirements under the current code, that person would have to seek a variance before they could get a building permit to elevate the building. Under this proposal, no such variance would be required. They would be allowed to elevate up to the maximum that the flood damage prevention ordinance required. If the height was only to the maximum height that the zoning regulation allows, so that if the zoning code maximum height needs to be exceeded, a variance application would be required for that, but not for setback. There were no comments at the last hearing. This did receive a favorable review from the Office of Long Island Sound Programs.
But the zoning enforcement officer will inspect prior to the site work. Has that been done?
That would be the normal case, along with the building official and also the assistant town engineer. All of them would be part of the inspection process, yes.
So this is basically designed to speed up the process?
Well, it's designed to encourage and allow, without additional process, people to comply with the lifting or raising of structures when such action is warranted in order to protect the property from flooding.
So George, quick question. If our height, well, I'm just going to throw numbers out, if our height limit was 25 feet and we said it had to be raised 10 feet, is the maximum height staying at 25 feet? So you're basically eliminating that first 10 feet of usable space, as opposed to saying the FEMA level plus our height?
The maximum height code would still prevail, so that under that circumstance, the person would have to seek a variance. Russ and the planning committee drafted this.
Yeah.
Right.
Was there any further, because no? Okay, are there any questions about this matter? Anyone like to, this is a public hearing, yeah, second public hearing, okay. Is anyone that like to speak in favor or against? Okay, hearing none.
Move to close?
Second.
All right. All in favor? Great. All right, now Diego.
Good evening. My name's, I don't know if it's on.
It's actually just for the recording for the video. It doesn't count.
Oh, it's on? Okay. Greg Fettis with Fettis Engineering. We were here 2 weeks ago regarding 6 Guilford Point Road. Kind of 3 simple additions. I don't know how much you want to go back through the. No changes. Just a clarification. I think it was, we went kind of through it in detail on the architectural plans, but that on the west side, that porch that's there now, 2-story structure, will be completely removed and rebuilt with the 2-foot addition. So I just wanted to clarify that. I think it was pretty clear in the architectural review last time, but just wanted to make sure. Because reading through the deep letter that we received last week, which I think everything is pretty straightforward in there. And if we do, I think one thing was mentioned was the possible violation of the seawall. If we do plan on doing anything with the seawall, we will go get a permit to do that. So, and I think we're in agreement with the town review, staff review regarding the erosion control and so forth. So I don't know if there's, Tony Terry's here regarding the architectural too, if there's any questions regarding that.
Is there anyone from the public that would like to ask any questions? Anyone who would like to speak in favor or against this application? Okay. Hearing none.
Move to close?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. All right, thank you. Okay, so Collins and Modilowski skipped, so Baldwin? Yeah. Okay, so can I get a motion to continue?
Make a motion to continue Marion Drew Collins to the 18th of April.
Second. All in favor?
Aye. Same thing, make a motion to move Scott Modzelewski to 418 for the first meeting.
All in favor? All right. So we're on to Baldwin and Baldwin.
Hi, I'm Doug Baldwin, 124 Andrews Road. I'm the contractor. And we're looking for a review to be able to put up our storage shed for kayaks, personal flotation devices, and things like that. If you remember the plan, you probably don't, since you've got plenty of plans to try to remember. This is our proposed 10 by 20 shed. 10 by 20 because then we can creep it closer to the setback line, keeping it 10 feet down. Work's proposed to be done by hand. Oh, you mentioned 10-foot concrete piers. They're 10-inch concrete piers. It's not going to be 10 feet in the air. The idea is that the homeowner doesn't really want to look at this thing. The neighbors don't want to look at this thing. We don't really want to feature it if you're kayaking by, so it kind of nestles back in here. And here's the flagpole. I'm standing with my back to the water, and there's the flagpole, and we're going to nestle it in here, not cut down any trees, not do any grading, just plop it on the ground.
This one's from Kevin McGee. Did you see this letter yet? It's dated today, so maybe not.
Maybe not, huh?
Maybe not.
Thanks, Kevin.
All right, the applicant is proposing to install a 10-foot by 20-foot storage shed for kayaks installed on concrete piers. The work being conducted is located outside of the flood hazard area and has a minor impact on the adjacent coastal resources. In order to make sure that the coastal resources are protected during the construction process, I recommend the following condition of approval. The only condition he has is any soil removed from digging the concrete filled support tubes should be disposed of away from the flood hazard area. Do you have a problem with that?
Nope.
All right. Do you want this letter?
No, I think I can remember that.
All right. And then there's one from Dennis Johnson that's also dated today, and that says that the applicant's proposed storage shed will not conflict with the location or operation of the septic system currently existing on site. All right. I don't have any questions. So many questions.
Anyone else?
Does anyone from the audience have any questions about this application? Would anyone like to speak in favor or against the application?
In favor.
All right.
Make a move to close?
Second, great. All in favor? All right. Moving right along. William Ghazi, yes. Is it Ghazi or Ghazi? Ghazi, okay.
I believe.
We'll find out.
Gozi or Ghazi, either one. My name's William Gozi. I'm here to try and get an approval for an accessory apartment on a new construction for a custom home on a lot off Westlake Avenue that we have. And the house is just a regular colonial, about 2,550 square feet. The accessory apartment's going to be about 750 square feet. That's really about it.
So this is an application, something that hasn't been built yet, right?
Right. And will the necessary additional parking be?
In the garage there, it's on a plot plan there that we have. I think you have to have three, just in the regular driveway area there. You have to have 3 cars, I think, that's what they drew it up as. It's a 3-acre lot, there's plenty of room on it there. Dennis has already, Dennis Johnson has looked at the septic plan, he's approved that.
Here, I could read it in quickly since we're on the matter. The additional water flow from the applicant's proposed accessory apartment can be accommodated into the four-bedroom design capacity of the septic system for the dwelling. It is recommended that the applicant's special permit be approved.
This has been reviewed by Aaron, the accessory apartment checklist, it meets all
Okay.
the requirements.
What's the size of the accessory apartment going to be?
About 750 square feet, 780 maybe, I forget exactly what it is.
Is that under a new rule?
That's good. Yep. I think this is the first one on
Yeah,
driving rule.
I think so.
Yeah, I was a little nervous there, because I know you used to have to live in one for a while, but I was told that, right,
place for 10.
right, no, I was told that this is a new, and the people I'm building the house for, that it's their parents that are gonna live there, so it's you know, it's
exactly-
not a rental type thing, it's a real in-law situation.
That's exactly what the change in rule was intended for, so that's a good thing. Okay. Anyone from the audience have any questions? Anyone? Yes.
Yeah, Lee Sanagata, 549 Westlake Avenue. I would like to know which way this home is facing, because it's in the back of my property. And I'd like to know, you know, if you could see this additional.
Do you have any maps of this
Yeah,
site?
you know
Can-
what, I can show you on,
Well,
this is a map.
why don't you just put it up over here and we could all come forward?
What's that?
Why don't you just put it up over on this easel and we could come forward so we can all see it?
Yeah, I'm just
Oh,
gonna grab this is a
Oh, okay,
different,
perfect.
You wanna come up there?
yeah.
It's basically gonna face the road, not gonna be any,
It's going to face Westlake Avenue?
right, it's gonna be on lot 2 there.
Well, that's the thing, I really don't know where Lot 2 is.
Right, no, I hear you.
Can you actually hold up the map so?
Sure. Sure. Okay, so, this is Westlake Avenue here. Your house is back here,
Yes.
okay? That house I built this year is right over here.
Okay.
This is where the house is gonna go right there. It's gonna face Westlake Avenue.
And where is that new apartment going to be, in the back of it?
It's gonna be attached to it, that's kind of the footprint of what it is right there.
Okay.
It's about 54 feet across the front, and I think it's about 55 feet deep. So it's gonna be running away from the road, you know what I mean? It's not like it's gonna be a 90-foot colonial across the front.
The other question I have, is this going to be a private road, or is that going to be a town road coming off Westlake Avenue to go into the back of my property?
That's a private driveway.
That's a private?
Yeah, yep, it's
Okay.
gonna serve, you know, this lot actually has its own driveway here.
Oh, I see.
This driveway is gonna serve this lot, and then the lot behind your house there.
Okay. And also, I think I seen something like existing right-of-way? Not right, on the existing driveway that was there? Is that going to be eliminated, or that's?
Yeah,
still
that's gonna be gone. That's right here.
Mhm.
That's still there just because I'm using it for work, but that's gonna be gone.
All right.
Yeah.
And as far as the road, how much room do I have from the road to the property line?
I would say it's probably about 40 feet there. I'd have to scale it out there. 1 inch is 50 feet on this map, so, you know, it varies from, you know, probably 75 feet. I'd say at the closest behind your house is probably 50 feet from the road
So
to
there's
the
gonna be
property line.
50, the road starts 50 feet away
50
from the
feet
property
in from the
line?
property line.
And how wide is this road?
12 feet, a regular driveway here.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it's not really a road, it's just a private drive here.
And that's going to be maintained by the people that are going to be living back there?
Yes. Okay.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Make a move to continue.
Well, let me just, would anyone like to speak against or in favor of this application? No?
Make a motion to continue to 4/18 for the second hearing?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So, you know, we just have one more hearing on this matter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, U-Haul. Continue. 8 o'clock. Oh,
So you could go into your regular agenda and act on some of these other items if you want to, and then come back to the U-Haul hearing when they get here.
we moved pretty quickly then, I guess, huh?
Yeah.
What's that? They're out there. I still didn't hear you. They're out there. Oh, okay.
We can still do that.
Okay, well, we'll
Okay.
see.
You want to still do that?
Oh, I don't want to have to open and close.
Brian just went out to check on it.
We're ready for a U-Haul if you guys are ready.
Bernie's not here. And Chuck Andrus, I told him to come at 8 o'clock also, he's not here, so. Okay. Regular deliberation.
Do I have to make a motion for a revised agenda, or no, because, okay, fine. So I guess we could do the first.
See, Baldwin and Baldwin, you can act on all three of those.
So I'll make a motion, or not a motion, yeah. I'll make a motion that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission approve an amendment to the zoning code, which George had read into the record. This amendment is approved based upon a finding that it is consistent with the plan of conservation and development. The amendment is effective on April 13th, 2018.
Second.
Okay, so I think it's just a common sense improvement to help people that live by the water. Any other discussion?
I mean, down the road, it wouldn't surprise me to say that if the height limit was 25 feet, that they would amend that to say, your height limit's going to be 25 feet plus your required elevation, but let's take it one bite at a time.
The committee talked about that actually, but we haven't proposed that yet.
Right.
So I'll call a motion on it? All those in favor? Or I won't call a motion? I'll call a vote on it. Okay. So that passes. So we'll, since Tomasi is really quick, I'll make a motion. Voted that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission approve a special permit for coastal area management plan for revision to a PRD for Diego Tomasi, 6 Guilford Point, map 24, lot 88, as shown on application dated 1/3/18 and 12/2017, and site plan of 6 Guilford Point Drive, prepared by Fetus Engineering, dated, Fetus Engineering, dated December 5th, 2017, and Tomasi Residence, prepared by Terry Architect, dated 7 August 2017, revised to 20 February 18. This application is approved with the following conditions. First, that the zoning enforcement officer inspect the sedimentation and erosion control measures prior to any site work. And second, any soil removed from digging the pilings be disposed of outside the flood hazard area. This application is approved based upon a finding that it conforms with the zoning code and is consistent with the coastal management policies of the state. The special permit is effective on April 13th, 2018, and upon filing with the town clerk.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Okay, then I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Okay, now we'll, is you all ready? We're still waiting. Oh, we're waiting for Chuck, okay. Okay, so we have one more. Baldwin? Who's Baldwin? Yeah, because that's a Cam. What else? Does someone want to read that motion? Anyways, I don't know.
I got it.
There you go. Got it.
Voted that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission approve a coastal management application for Baldwin and Baldwin LLC at 270 Old Quarry Road, map 12, lot 78A, for a shed as shown on the application dated 2/19/2018, and property located at 270 Quarry Hill Road, prepared by Cristo Engineering, dated 2/21/2018. This application is moved with the following condition.
That's the condition.
The application is based on the finding of the that the form conforms with the zoning code and consistent with the coastal management policy of state of Connecticut.
Are you including Kevin's recommended condition?
I'll read this.
Kevin's recommendation.
No, just, you could just say Kevin's recommendation.
All right, it's Kevin's recommendation is
A condition.
the condition of approval.
Okay, I'll second that.
I can-
I would just also add that it's 270 Old Quarry Road.
Yeah, do we need to change the word
What did
road?
he say?
I think he said Quarry Hill Road or something.
I said Old Quarry.
Well, that was fixed.
Spelling's different. I don't know if that matters.
Any discussion? We'll move it really quick. Okay, so I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? All right. Chuck is still in here. Keep going. Oh,
We're fast.
Lord. We are cruising.
Might be finding
Yeah.
a hard time parking. Hopefully.
How about Keystone Novelties?
Keystone.
Yeah, we have something for Keystone Novelties. What's this Keystone Novelties?
Is there someone here from Keystone Novelties? I guess not. There's a,
No, here we go.
oh, good.
I was just napping
Well,
My name's Neil Shaw from Attleboro, Massachusetts. Folks from Pennsylvania couldn't make it, so they sent Grandpa. This is for a tent at the Guilford Commons. And as in the past, the tent is flame-resistant material. And basically, it's going to open on June 26th, close on July 5th. The tent would go up a day or two before that and come down a day or two after, but no later than the July 9th.
Do you know where in Guilford Commons it's going to be placed?
drawing, there's a drawing.
Or an aerial photograph.
Thanks. So that's the proposed,
were here before?
It's by the main entrance.
That's the site?
that's where the restaurant was supposed to be?
Yes.
In that same parking lot?
This was approved
Last
last year at a different location. What was it?
Right, it was at the,
Same location, different place in the plaza.
really? I thought it was, wasn't that a former Splash parking lot last year?
No, that was the other novelty. That was TNT or whatever. It's another one.
This is, the use is the same, it's fireworks and related.
So were you at this site last time, or were you at a different site last time?
I believe they're at that site.
Is the signage limited to your tent area?
The what?
Is the signage limited to your tent area?
Yes, there's nothing out on the road, because kind of, when you put them on the road, it gives like a flea market effect, so we don't do any of that.
Sure.
That is where the Splash restaurant is, right? It's not where Guilford Commons is. Just look it up.
This is at
Okay, that's a typo on our part. It's not at 535, it's at 1919. Sorry about that.
Did you get a?
They have that.
Okay.
There's no letters in here from any, no comments, okay. Any other questions? There's no parking issues.
Yeah, you have plenty of parking.
Okay, I'll make a motion. Voted that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission approve the request of Keystone Novelties to erect a 30 by 45 foot tent at 1919 Boston Post Road to sell fireworks and associated novelties from June 26th to July 5th, 2018, as shown on an application dated 3/7/2018. This application is approved based upon a finding that conforms with the zoning code.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Have fun.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're good. Okay, you all, we're ready for you.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Bernard Pellegrino. I'm an attorney with the Pellegrino Law Firm in New Haven. I represent U-Haul as the applicant in regard to the current applications before you for site plan and special permit approval. Other members of the design team are here, our project engineer, our architect, and you'll hear from them later in our presentation. So the property in question is located at 301 Boston Post Road. In addition to that parcel, there's a neighboring vacant lot that is also owned by the owner that is the subject of the application. If approved, the properties would be merged into one lot. Merged, or as combined, the acreage is about 4.5 acres. As I said, the small piece is vacant. The other parcel is improved with a building of about 17,000 square feet, which for many years was a car dealership, first by Heller and then by Mannix. And I'm sure you're familiar with the property and that building. The property is currently located in the TS zoning district, and the uses proposed, which are self-storage and truck and trailer rental by U-Haul, are both permitted in the zone by special permit. The site does contain a small wetland in the, let's say, northeast corner of the property, and the project has gone before the Wetland Commission and received its approval. The property is a corner lot. It has frontage on both Boston Post Road and Tanner Marsh Road, so it's on the corner there. Currently, the properties have 5 curb cuts. The proposal would reduce those curb cuts to 3. The applicant is seeking to redevelop the site, as I mentioned, to utilize it for truck and trailer rental, U-Haul trucks, and self-storage, which has become an important part of the business. The U-Haul owns thousands of self-storage units across the country, so it is a experienced operator of self-storage units, both in Connecticut and, as I say, across the country. In addition to the renovation of the existing building that you're used to, the Mannix auto dealership, a new building would be constructed on the site, which would be used entirely for self-storage. You'll see all of that in a minute. And the existing building would be renovated and used as office space, retail, and rental office for the truck and trailer rental, as well as warehouse, and some of that building would be used for self-storage. We believe, and I hope you'll find that after our presentation, that the project is worthy of your approval. It meets the bulk standard regulations for setbacks, height, coverage, etc., as set forth in the TS district. Our design team has worked closely and received approval from the Design Review Committee for the building. As some of you may recall, we were here about a year ago with the project, and there were some questions relative to the design of the building, its compatibility in your town, in the neighborhood, as well as an issue relative to its proximity to the road. As proposed last time, we were at the required minimum setback, maximum setback. There were some questions as to whether that building could be pushed back a little bit farther from the road. Your regulations didn't permit it. So we went to the ZBA and we received a variance that allowed us to move the building back a little further away from the road. So over the past few months, we have been redesigning the look of the building and working with Design Review Committee to achieve a positive referral, and going to ZBA to see if we could vary the reg to allow us to move the building back, which we received. The project would also reduce, in addition to the number of curb cuts, parking, non-conforming parking along the front of Boston Post Road. Historically, those cars have been parked very closely to the road. The regulation now requires a greater setback. So We are proposing to reduce that nonconformity by significantly reducing the number of cars, substantially increasing the landscaping on the site. I think from an economic development standpoint, the redevelopment of the site would provide a boost to the town's grand list. We are proposing new sidewalks. Our client has conducted a traffic analysis of the site, given proposed increase in activity on the site with existing traffic volumes, and found that there would be no negative effect. And as I mentioned, it meets all of your bulk standards. So that's kind of an introduction and overview, and I'll ask Dave Gagnon from Langen Engineering to present the site plan to you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is David Gagnon. I'm a licensed civil engineer in the state of Connecticut. I work for Langen Engineering, and I'm here representing the client. I just want to reiterate a few things that Mr. Pellegrino just stated and show you kind of our proposed design and compare that to existing conditions. Really briefly, I want to give an overview of what the site currently looks like and what we're proposing to do with the site. As Mr. Pellegrino stated, we have a parcel here, totals, our site has comprised of two parcels, totals roughly 4.5 acres. It's bound by Interstate 95 to the north, local road Tanner Marsh to the left, to the west, and to the south of the site is Boston Post Road. To the east is an industrial facility here. We are located in the TS zone, and currently there are 5 curb cuts, as previously noted. There are 2 on Tanner Marsh Road, one kind of to the north of the site and one further to the south, and there are 3 on Boston Post Road. The site is improved with the former Mannix car dealership on the west side of the site, and the east side of the site is unimproved. Just to give you a brief kind of history of where we are now and how we got here, and kind of where we last left off with this commission is a year ago we presented our application. There was some concerns, I think, about the architecture of the building and getting design reviews by-off before the commission was ready to vote. So we withdrew our application. We went back to design review. We've had probably half a dozen working sessions, either informal sit-downs with them or presentations to kind of go through the site design, the landscape architecture, the lighting, the building layout, and the architecture of the building. U-Haul has since retained a local architect to kind of help the building fit into the community and speak to the kind of vocabulary of Guilford's architecture. So we hired a new architect, and they kind of helped us through that process. One of the major feedback items we received from design review is they thought, as Mr. Pellegrino mentioned, in this zone, there's a minimum and a maximum setback. So there's a minimum setback of 30 feet and a maximum setback of 50. Our building was placed at that maximum setback of 50, and they felt it should be pushed back even further than 50 feet to align more closely with the adjacent building. So we received a variance to push that further back to 70 feet from Boston Post Road. And in doing that, we, as mentioned before, there is a small isolated pocket of wetlands, the northeast part of the corner, northeast corner of the site. By pushing the building further back, we get closer to the wetlands, so we had to go back to wetlands, receive their approvals again. So we're back here and we received a favorable recommendation from design review, from wetlands, ZBA, and now briefly I'd like to go over what our proposed design will entail. The former Mannix building on the left side of the site will be fully renovated interior and exterior. The east part of the site will be improved with a 3-story self-storage facility. We are reducing the amount of curb cuts on Tanner Marsh Road from 2 to 1 over here. Boston Post Road from 3 to 2. We're improving Boston Post Road with a sidewalk. As mentioned before, there are We're improving the landscape buffer. Currently, there's almost no landscape buffer on the site. I believe it's about 6 feet. We're improving that to about 30 feet. So we're kind of cleaning up that area. As far as utilities go, all public utilities, with the exception of a septic system, we have our proposed septic leaching field in the center of the site, and we worked through the health department with that design and received their approval. Stormwater management, currently the site, really no stormwater management to speak for whatsoever. Stormwater either sheet flows to Boston Post Road or sheet flows back to the wetlands in the back with any kind of water quality. What we're proposing is a infiltration basin in the back of the site. We're proposing over in this area, this is fire truck access. These are going to be permeable pavers to allow for some infiltration. In the front side of the site, we have some reinforced turf, which allows fire truck access while keeping it green, and significant landscape improvements. As far as the lighting goes, all new lighting on site. They'll all be high efficiency, full cutoff LED fixtures. And this is kind of a concern of the design review, is how this lighting is going to look, when the lights are going to be on, how the interior lighting is going to affect the exterior of the building. We came up with a bunch of renderings. We worked through a design review over the course of months to kind of nail down a specific program, and that's included in your documents. And I could go over that if needed, but essentially at night, the interior lights of the self-storage facility will be off, with the exception of safety lightings, hallway lightings, but any kind of accent lighting that people who are concerned with kind of illuminate the building, that'll be off at night.
Will be activated by someone approaching the building.
Correct. So let me show you a figure. I think it'll kind of clear things up a little bit. Okay. So essentially, the building is broken down into 3 lighting scenarios. During the day, the only lights that are going to be on are the interior lights to the building. All the exterior lights are going to be off. That's not shown in these diagrams. We have, in your packet, we have 3-dimensional models of the building and how that would impact the exterior surrounding areas. And then in the early morning, late evenings is when we're going to turn on kind of the site light, and that'll be from 6 a.m. to dusk to 10:30. At that point, as far as the interior lighting goes, it's really just going to be hallway lighting. There's not going to be any kind of accent lighting, so we're not going to be lighting up the storage units in any way. It's just safety lighting inside the building. And then at night, we're paring that down even more. We're turning off most of the site lighting, with the exception of by the curb cuts, the entrance to the building, and then inside the building, the only lights that are going to be on are those hallway lights. And we have some renderings we could go over to if you like. As far as the landscaping goes, significant landscape improvements. As you can see, we're increasing the landscape buffer along both Boston Post Road, Cannon Marsh Road. And to give you a quick rundown of what we're proposing, we have 26 shade trees, 15 evergreen trees, 175 evergreen shrubs, 167 deciduous shrubs, 74 pine containers of perennials, and we have 56 2-gallon containers of ornamental grasses. So unless there's any questions, I'll give it back to the attorney.
Thank you. When we were here, there were questions about a negative impact on property values, and so we engaged a certified appraiser to perform I think, an extensive study, which was submitted with the application. It's extensive, so I thought it would be a good idea to have him come and kind of summarize that for you, what he did, what his findings were, so that you might be better able to digest it. I know it was helpful for me when I got the thing. So Steve Frey is here, and I'd ask him to come up and address you.
Good evening, everybody. Steve Frey, real estate appraiser out of Madison, Connecticut. About 30 years appraising. Former chief appraiser at People's United Bank in Bridgeport, and a small bank in Meriden, Connecticut. I've had my own business for about since 1990. Do extensive commercial work as well as residential throughout the state. Mainly lending institutions, attorneys, private clients. Attorney Pellegrino contacted me, asked me to do an impact study of this U-Haul facility and the surrounding properties. Basically, that entails looking at a before and after. So what we did was we first looked at the site itself, where it lies in Guilford on the periphery of the Boston Post Road, essentially surrounded by, commercial improvements. And the concern was what's going to be the impact of the residential property values if this facility goes up. So what we did was we first looked at how Guilford was trending in terms of property values over the last 20 years. The sources of information we primarily relied on was the Warren Group, as well as the MLS. The Warren Group basically is a company that it documents all the sales throughout the state of Connecticut. So you can trend what property values are doing. MLS has a select few compared to the Warren Group. So those are our main two sources of information. And what we did in the before and after was we saw the impact of, if any, of other projects. One in particular is in Brantford. It's off of Route 1. It's a self-storage facility. I don't know if anybody knows of it. The actual address of that property is 247 North Main Street. So we analyzed sales of homes before that facility went up and after. And we trended what happened to the property values. And what we found in that instance was there was no real impact. It actually, in that neighborhood, did as good, if not better, than what Brantford did at that time frame. That property sold in 2007, facility constructed in 2008. So we found sales before that time frame and after that time frame in that area, and saw if it was impacted by this facility going up.
How wide an area did you look at?
We did a half-mile radius.
Half-mile radius.
So that was one example. The other example, I'm sure everybody knows, of the rock pile in Guilford. So we did that as well. That was a contested, obviously, development project. We did the same thing with that. And again, we found, no major impact. It's based on percentages. You're looking at sales before, you're looking at sales after. You see what the percent change is. And in most cases, it was positive, sometimes negative. But when you look at the number of sales that we analyzed, overall, the impact was not there. The other property that we looked at in Guilford was also, let's see, it was at the far end of town. It was, let's see, we have here, I want to call it 1919 Boston Post Road. Because that's at the periphery of commercial development as well. It's a multi-building frame structure, commercial.
That's 1990.
Oh, that's 1990, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you. Guilford Commons. Okay, 2351 Boston Post Road. Constructed in 2006. Again, multi-building property, commercial. Did the same analysis, before and after sales of residential homes within a half-mile radius. Again, found the same results, that there was no major impact on property values. We also looked at marketing times. How long were these properties on the market? Was it any different from other homes advertised in Guilford or in Brantford? So days on market. Did not find anything that indicated that there would be anything that would skew the results. It was very steady throughout. And then we just looked at, obviously, where the site is, how we felt, the properties around it, the garage across the street, the two motels, the water tower, the industrial building that's adjacent to it. We just, again, we did a site-specific analysis, and our conclusion was that, based on our experience, it just would not have an impact negatively on residential property values. I think it's well buffered. Honestly, I think it's an ideal location with visibility from the highway, but, that's just my judgment. Any questions as to our analysis?
Well, we can go ahead, or we could just finish the full. Just a quick, you had cited, I'm not sure what the number was, 2351 Boston Post Road as kind of a comp?
We did. We just looked at, again, only because it was at the other end of town, and there's residential around it as well.
Architecturally, it's probably quite different from that.
Absolutely. There's so many variables you have to consider. I like the comp in Branford is the best one. It's a self-storage facility. It's 3 stories high. There is residential development around it. Got a good analysis from that one. Totally agree with you with the one from at the other end of town. Architecturally, different, but it's, there's not that many things you can draw information from, and you want to try to stay in the town if you can. That's what we did.
Comparing this proposed U-Haul storage facility to the one in Branford, that they look comparably similar, or they're?
Generally speaking, in my opinion, I mean, I've driven by that one hundreds of times. I've had renderings of the one proposed, unless it's changed drastically. I actually think the one in Guilford is more appealing, myself.
If I'm thinking about this right, topographically in Branford, is there a pretty good pitch behind the building? Is it?
Yeah, I think there is the ledge.
So there's a pretty good buffer?
Yeah.
Between the building and, I would assume, residential homes to the south of that? Agreed. I
mean, it would be ideal if we had something extremely similar, to what's occurring in Guilford. Obviously rare to find. And you want to try to stay along the shoreline, specifically Branford, Guilford, Madison. I think those towns compete favorably with one another with property values. But I don't disagree with you. There is a backdrop to that one in Branford, without a doubt.
How many homes are within a half mile of
This property?
This property.
I can't say that I actually have that information. I know we just did a half-mile radius of resale activity, so that we can,
okay.
That's all we did, yeah.
And was that sample large, or was there a lot of activity, or a very small amount of activity?
Well, give me a second. The one in Branford, we also did, just to back up, and I'll answer your question. In the subject neighborhood, we also did a sales trending of what was in, the general area, and our sampling within the area, looking at it quickly, it was probably about 20 homes. Branford, self-storage. Okay. Sales prior to the development. We had 5 that we found within that half-mile radius. Sales after, we had 5. And then we also did, because there's also some condominium development in that area of that one within the half-mile radius, we had a sampling of about 8 before, and after we had quite a few. We probably had close to 20. And again, we also looked at not only the percentage differences before and after, we looked at days on market. Because any indication of anything that would be adverse to market conditions or to property values, days on market also give you good indication. And we didn't see any indication that things were on the market for an excessive period of time. So that's pretty much our conclusion. This is what we came up with. Any other questions? Concerns?
Well, that building is backed up against the highway anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, it does.
So there's no houses behind it until you get over the highway, and then there's a farm on the other side, as I remember.
Down, what is it, that side
When
road?
you drive over the bridge, the
Yeah,
first thing you come
Tanner Marsh,
into is a
right.
farm. So you
Yeah.
don't really have any houses close behind it.
No, we had to expand our, again, half mile radius gave us some indicators as to a sale, resale activity.
Your situation, but can you show me where the sheds are gonna be on that?
I don't know if that's my expertise. I just-
Okay, well, when
so
they come
I'll
back
step
up.
back and let Attorney Pellegrino have the mic.
We can let them finish their presentation. Well, or, okay.
So Dave Gagnon with Langen Engineering, and can you repeat your question? Where was the sheds going to be?
You show me, you got the building there, I can see it from here, but I don't follow the sheds. Where are they going to the, show me the,
There's going to be a canopy, so there'll be a drop-off canopy for the return vehicles. There'll be no sheds. So we're going to have, the only objects on the site are going to be this 3-story self-storage facility, the renovation of the Mannix building, and then there'll be a small canopy for the drop-off of the vehicle, but in addition to that, there'll be nothing else
so
on
we're
site.
not gonna have any lights on at night if they come back?
No, so there will be lights on at night, there'll be safety lighting, as we kind of went over before. This would represent the night shift. These are all the lights turned on at night. We're paring it down just to the minimum to keep the site safe. People will be accessing the site at night, so we want to make sure that they have clear access to the entry points and to the building. As far as the building lights, we turned off as much as we could. There will be safety hallway lighting, and that's recessed, so that's not going to be illuminating either the storage units or.
The storage units, not have a lot of glass. There's not going to be a lot of.
And we have our architect here too, so he'll go over kind of some renderings, some perspectives, so you get a better idea of what the building looks like. But there will be some exterior glass on the building. Beyond that glass will be some storage units. We're not going to be illuminating those units at night. So it's not going to look like other products you've seen maybe in Providence or New Haven. So this is a much different situation. We realize that. We want to fit in with the community.
Talk about the way the lighting comes down. Will it have a very small profile on the ground?
Yeah,
I mean,
so-
is it very focused on the ground as opposed to bleeding out?
Right, and we provided photometrics plans that shows you the foot candles throughout the property. This is really the intensity of where you're going to see the light. We tried to minimize the bleed over the property line to as little as possible. You might have 0.1 foot candle, 0.5 foot candle, which is very minimal. So we were sensitive to the area. We didn't want to be lighting up the whole neighborhood, so we really tried to pare it down as much as we could at night. And we met with Design Review and discussed this over several sessions, and they were comfortable with the solutions that we came up with. So I'm confident that it's not going to be some big billboard that you see at night. And one of the recommendations that Design Review did give us was to make all the interior lights dimmable. So if for whatever reason the lights were brighter than we anticipated, we have the ability to turn that down. So it's not going to be, the lights are in, this is what it is. We could, if we need to, kind of mess with those levels.
And finally, I'd like to do architecture last. So Stan Slarsky from Boris and Associates in New Haven, who was involved in the redesign that we talked about, is here to present that to you.
Hi, I'm Stan Slarsky from Kenneth Borson Architects. We're based in New Haven. I'm a licensed Connecticut architect and licensed building official in Connecticut, also senior associate at Ken's office. I'm kind of pitch hitting for Ken tonight. He couldn't make it, so I have the little write-up that he wanted me to read off, and I can answer as best as I can. I will be provided, moving forward, I'll take over the project during construction documents through construction, et cetera, but Ken handled the design. So our firm was retained by U-Haul to assist with creating the design to meet the requirements of the Design Review Committee. These are renderings of the new 3-story building that we discussed. For the new building, the form is designed to reduce, the building form is designed to reduce the scale of the building to the public visible side. A 2-story front elevation, it's actually 3, but it was designed to look like 2 to reduce the scale. Along Route 1 that echoes the gable of the original structure and that of the building across the street, shields the 3-story structure, and a slope roof along the parking lot side also reduces the scale. The building will be shielded along the long side that is perpendicular to the parking lot by trees. The rear of the building faces the highway, fiber cement board siding, both horizontal wood lap pattern on the lower level and board and batten on the upper level. It's hard to see up here, but this is the board and batten. This is the horizontal siding below. This is the elevation that will face Route 1. This is towards the, not the back of the site at the highway, but I don't know what's there right now. There's like a field or like another industrial building. This was more of a perspective of what you'll see from Route 1, and this is the perspective from the highway. That's what you'll see along Route 1 of the new building, same with that, and then this is the renovated Mannix building. I also have elevations of this.
That's the Mannix building?
Yes, yep. So really what we did was we're covering the boarding with a vertical board and batten system similar to the new building.
It's actually wood?
It's fiber cement board, hardy plank. New storefront, really just replacing what is there. This is along the parking lot side. This is the back of the building. There will be the loading dock area. And this is the elevation facing Tanner Marsh. So let me see where I was. The fire cement sign, which said break up the mass. The larger windows will also lighting the massing, and there's a masonry base. We're looking at a thin culture stone material as the base material. And then for the existing building, we're just resheeting with the board and batten, like I said, the fiber cement siding to match some of the existing building. And we worked with the Design Review Committee who reviewed the design and approved it. So if you have any questions, I can answer. I can return back to Attorney Pellegrini.
Cultured stone is concrete?
Yeah, it's it's basically a concrete looking stone. It's not real stone, it's stamped. It looks like concrete, looks like stone, so.
But the whole, I mean, what's there now is pretty much white, isn't it?
I think it's here there's a concrete block wall
Yeah.
that then wraps around. If I remember, it's white. I'm a resident of Guilford. I've driven past 100 times, and that's what I really pay. Love the flea market, but I think this is better improvement. We got the storefront. That's going to be a dark bronze anodized. These are mock overhead doors just to break up the elevation. Otherwise, this is just all masonry right now. Yep. Any other questions, or I'll pass it back to Attorney Pellegrini. Thank you for your time.
It just about concludes our presentation, and but before I turn it over to you, if you have any questions or you go to the public, even though it's a buzzkill, I wanted to talk about non-conforming parking spaces just to lay the foundation for what I'm sure will be some additional discussion as we get into the application. Our position is parking along the Boston Post Road has existed and has existed in essentially its current state for some 58 years. Since Heller develop the site for automotive. Cars, hundreds of cars have been parked along the front, and presently the parking spaces are within 6.5 feet of the property line. Your regulations changed a number of times, but have changed since those parking spaces were constructed and utilized. We are proposing parking within the required, presently, under the regulations, within the required setback area. We have moved them back about 20 feet, and we are proposing to reduce the number to 7. So our position, and I submitted my legal opinion, is that we are reducing a nonconformity both as to distance and as to number, and by virtue of an approval would agree that existing nonconformities would be extinguished by virtue of your approval of this application. There are a couple, potentially 6, that are in a similar situation along the Tanner Marsh side, but I think the focus of the discussion may be those vehicles.
Will it be mostly the trucks parked in front? Because that what appears to be.
Yeah, it would be U-Haul trucks that would be used in the fleet for rental. You've seen the trucks; they all have.
You park them in the front of the building.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. There would be other parking on site, but they would be within the presently permitted vehicle parking distance, if you will.
Are you saying that your change now brings your application within conformity of our town code?
Almost. It brings it closer into conformity as to increasing the distance the vehicles are from the road to 27 feet and reducing the number of vehicles that would be permitted to park in the area where they are currently parked.
So what increase in volume would you anticipate between what is there now and what will be when the new facility is, if the new facility is built?
I don't have the traffic report handy, but Dave can run that through for you.
Well, before you run it through, I guess.
Let me just,
sort of build off of that a little bit is how many, at the last presentation, we talked a lot about how many storage units there were going to be and what you sort of expected the actual daily usage rates were going to be. I mean, can you build that into the discussion as well?
Yeah, we can. Let me just finish the boring legal argument. So that's our position, legally non-conforming, and this would reduce the non-conformity in both aspects, distance and number.
The non-conformity being the existing property, the way it's being.
The existing parking, yeah,
Right.
the historical parking.
What is the current regulation, and how is it that what you're doing, how much more would it take to make it conforming?
Yeah, that's a good question. So this dash line represents that 50-foot setback. In the existing condition, you're really right off that property line. We're increasing that to 27 feet from the property line. To meet that 50 feet, we would literally be parking in the front half of the building. So there wasn't, given the existing conditions of where that building was built, we didn't really have the ability to put these vehicles on the front part of the building.
Is that the line that goes across the back of those trucks, that's the conforming line?
This is the conforming line. That's correct. This is where, this is where we're proposing to put our vehicles.
Right.
The existing line would be somewhere over here. Right. And there was the question about how often this facility be used. We did a traffic analysis, and I think part of the answer is going to be probably the representatives of U-Haul. But if you look at our traffic analysis, I mean, it's, as far as self-storage goes, it's really a low-impact traffic generator. So you're not going to see a ton of vehicles. What we came up with, and we confirmed this with the DOT, was peak weekday you're going to have 66 trips over the entire day. So that means you have 33 cars leaving, 33 cars entering the site. And that's for both facilities. So if you break that down to how many per hour, you're going to have a handful per hour. During Saturday, which is the higher of Saturday or Sunday, you're going to have even less volume. You're going to have 48 total trips. So that's 24 vehicles entering the site, 24 exiting the site. And as far as the number of units, the building is just over 50,000, or just under, I'm sorry, 50,000 gross square feet. About 2/3 of that is going to be dedicated to self-storage units. The rest of it's going to be circulation. As far as a breakdown, we have that in the plans that we gave you. We could count it out. But as far as specific number, I don't have that at hand. Is there anything?
Yeah, I think that's what it was about last time. And I don't know who I should direct the question to, but in terms of, idling trucks at the site, maintaining trucks at the site, cleaning trucks at the site, so what does that operation entail? Are all the trucks sent off-site for that sort of stuff?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think.
Excuse me. My name is Patrick Keefe. I'm a U-Haul company president of Coastal Connecticut, and I'll be overseeing day-to-day operations at the facility. As far as idling goes, there will be no idling. When a truck is returned, it is checked for safety, it's cleaned, and it's, we call it shunted for the next customer, made it customer ready. There will be no on-site repairs. All repairs are completed off-site, with the exception of safety checks, maybe refilling the windshield washing fluid or something very minor.
In terms of cleaning, what sort of, cleaning process does the truck go through? Are there chemicals that are?
Absolutely not, and the truck wash that we use is biodegradable and environmentally friendly.
You mentioned that you were projecting about 66 traffic per day. Is there a comparison to what there has been with the current site and the current use that it was currently used as a U-Haul, correct?
That's correct.
Is there any way that you can compare that to what is currently the traffic is?
I will say that the traffic study is accurate to what I assume will occur there. I don't have any hard data at this time. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I could speak to that. So we had 66 trips, and that's in and out, so you'd see 33 customers a day. Most of the customers will be dedicated towards the vehicle rental, which would be what's happening right now. As far as self-storage, people don't go to these units very often. I mean, they check in, U-Haul would be more versed in this than me, but they check in occasionally, so they're not coming every day. So you're not going to have 300 people checking on all their units every day. It's very occasional, and that was confirmed, I think, by our analysis. We also spoke with the DOT, and they agreed. We've done a number of these projects throughout Connecticut, and we studied kind of the pre and post conditions. We've done some in New Haven and Plainville, and it seems to be accurate. I mean, these aren't used extensively. It's kind of once in a while.
The traffic would be pretty similar to what it currently is.
Yeah, there will be an uptick. We're adding a new, obviously a new structure, but it's not going to be significant. I don't think it'll be noticeable.
If I can add to that, a common storage customer simply moves their stuff in, spends about 3 to 6 months at our facility renting month to month, and moves their stuff out. It's very rare that you're visiting your seasonal belongings on a weekly basis or something. It's very uncommon.
I haven't heard yet, what are the hours on the self-storage facility?
The hours will be 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. for regular business hours. We do allow after-hours access to specific clients, such as maybe a tradesperson or somebody that would require that access, but it is granted by the general manager, and it has to have a specific reason for that. We don't allow anyone to peruse our building at night.
One of the questions that was asked last time, I can't remember if it was definitively answered, and that is, what's the maximum number of U-Haul vehicles that would be on the property at any one time? I don't know if you don't have that number yet, you could help.
It's a dynamic number. I mean, there's no specific number I could say. I mean, we try to meet the demand of what what is needed. I can certainly say we never have a vehicle parked. It's bad for business. We want our equipment where it's needed. So it's not our goal to load up this place. Similar, yeah, you can.
Yeah, so it's part of our, if you look at our site plan, it's CS 101. We list out, the maximum amount that we're proposing to have. So we have, I believe it's 45 potential spaces for vehicles. We don't anticipate these to be used all the time, but we have it in our site plan application. And this is in addition to the 7 display spots in the front and the shunting in the back. So that would be 45 equipment storage spots plus the 7 in the front.
So how much additional parking is available on the site after the 45 and 7? Is it?
I believe it's 16. So we have 2 handicap accessible parking spots. We have a number of spots kind of in the front of the building here, over here, and a few spots in this area. So I believe it's, and plus we have loading over here as well. So there will be 16, customer parking spots.
What sort of policies does U-Haul have in place for what is actually left at the storage facility, like in terms of chemicals or?
Oh, yeah, we completely ban any illegal substances. We don't allow firearms, any type of gas canisters, propane canisters, even so far as valuables like money or jewelry. We basically just want household goods in the facility.
The person who's going to rent from you guys will sign something that says?
Correct.
Okay.
It's within our contract, and if we find that they're in violation of that, they're evicted for sure. But it's very rare. I mean, we would never allow, we're pretty tight with security, and we would never allow, for example, something hazardous going into our building. It would be spotted.
Just to go back to the legal argument, just to finish this, so you have it all. So I gave you kind of our position. In addition to that, in preparing to refile, we identified section 273-13C of the regulations, which permits you, by special permit, to permit and to approve an alteration, relocation, or change in nonconformity. So what does that mean? To the extent that it was determined that you determined that my argument is incorrect, and that for some reason the nonconforming right to park trucks in the front yard was abandoned or extinguished, which we would probably argue with you because the current owner has signed an affidavit, which is included in my legal opinion, saying that he never intended to abandon any right, which is the cornerstone legal and factual determination as to the continuation of a nonconformity. But to the extent that you determined that either in whole or in part, some portion of that nonconformity was either extinguished, and certainly the car parking was never extinguished because that continues to today. But trucks or other vehicles, you can permit by special permit those vehicles in that area. So it's a dual-pronged argument. We provided that request for a special permit as a, kind of a belt and suspenders approach. And I'm not going to say any more on that for now. If you have any more questions for us on either the operation, the plan, we're happy to answer.
The 3 rectangles parked behind the trucks, what are those trucks also?
These?
Yes.
I thought, Dave, I thought that was the drop-off area. He asked one of those.
Yeah, just from a kind of an operational standpoint, this would be kind of the return area right here. So customers would pick up their vehicles in the corner of the site, most likely leave Tanamarsh Road. This would be, what we discussed as vehicle drop-off. So customers would come back, most likely in this entrance, drop off their vehicle. It would be, inspected, cleaned out by U-Haul, and then brought to the back of the site for rental.
27-foot or 50-foot setback, what is the significance of that, and when did we make the change in the zoning code?
The significance part, maybe I can handle, but Chuck can talk about the details of it maybe.
Yeah. My guess is that it was put in as part of the TS zone,
Right.
which would have been around 2000.
2000. The significance of it, or the intent, the purpose of it?
Yeah.
I think the purpose was aesthetic, was to try to limit the impact of large fields of parking from the street, or large fields of automotive or other vehicle display as part of a retail facility, prohibited within that 50-foot area, associated with motor vehicle repair, motor vehicle rental. That's, this 50-foot setback is specific to that.
50 foot is associated with vehicle rental?
Yes.
Specifically?
Yes, it's not a general, it's not a prohibition for other commercial activities. It's only applicable to the motor vehicle rental facility.
So was that actually just designed for this specific site? It was for the
No, it was designed, I think, with the idea of motor vehicle sales facilities in general, not just this particular site.
Are any motor vehicle sales sites in that area right now in conformity with that reg? I don't think so.
Across the street is an automotive repair that also does motor vehicle sales. Those vehicles are right up against the property line. That's the only one that comes to mind immediately. Well, the other motor vehicle sales facilities in that area are also combined motor vehicle repair places like D&S down the road a little bit.
Enterprise might comply.
Enterprise might actually comply because if that site, where Enterprise is, it's kind of up a little hill there. That setback might actually be 50 feet. I'm not positive. It's a good question.
Do you have any other questions before we open it up? Okay, anyone from the public like to ask any questions first? Specifically questions. Okay, go ahead. If you could just. Yeah,
Been around so we can all see.
Yeah, sure.
I'll adjust.
Do you have a preferred image? I guess we'll go with this one.
Yeah, it might help for the audience to be able to see the renderings of the building.
That's from the street. I'll put the renderings on top.
Are there any specific questions? Yeah, go ahead. If you could just stand up and give your name and address so that we have a
Gus
picture.
Kellogg, 335 Boston Street. I thought I heard somewhere in the presentation that this new design took into consideration minimizing glass. I think the question.
I asked about that because other storage facilities I've seen have been basically just brick and,
So I don't understand, the edifice is now 2 stories plus a bit of a gable. It looks to my eye 80% glass. I did not see the previous design, but I don't understand how it could be considered that glass was actually reduced in this design.
Do you have an answer for that? Was the glass reduced or?
Not too familiar with the original design, but I'm pretty sure that at least along this elevation, whatnot, that degree, glass was increased.
And this was actually a recommendation of design review. They wanted to see some glass. They didn't want to see a big box that was just kind of an ominous structure. So they wanted something to break up those facades. This is the elevation that's facing the industrial building. They didn't want the entire perimeter of the building looking like this. They wanted us to break it up somehow. That's why we put in the gables. That's why we put slope roofs, the windows in the places we did.
Any other?
Yeah, excuse me, a follow-on question to that, and it gets to the lighting plan as well. My understanding is from 6 to 10:30, 10:30 p.m. to 6 a.m., there's a change in lighting and that there's only safety lighting. Is there any, I'm assuming you don't have a rendering, but can you give us an idea of what this glass edifice looks like at night? If there's safety lighting in that area?
We did do some renderings. They're a little difficult to understand because it's a photometric plan. So it'll tell you what the luminosity will be outside the building. But as far as the intensity of the interior of the building at night, these storage units are not going to be illuminated. The only lighting that's going to be on at night during the hours that you mentioned are going to be recessed hallway lighting. And that's really just for safety concerns of the customers. So, and as discussed with design review, we're going to put in LED dimmable lights. So if it appears too bright, it's not what we anticipated. We have the ability to turn that down.
But the recessed hallway lighting does include the front hallway?
Correct. Is there anything else, you guys?
No, that's it.
Right.
Any other questions? Okay, if you could just actually come up and come to the mic so that we get you picked up and your name.
Lawrence Leet, 10 Horseshoe Road, and in the previous presentation done about a year ago, there was much detail about the fact that no trucks were ever going to be washed on this site. And now I see that we're going to use biodegradable detergents, but these trucks are definitely going to get washed. And I don't think you've got a ground rudder and a wetlands in the back, and I don't think it's being addressed.
If I may clarify that. I was referring to the interior of the trucks, just wiping down the dashboards. We will not be washing trucks' exteriors. So I apologize for that. That's correct.
Actually, let him go first, please.
Jason Markey, 29 Horseshoe Road. Could you go over, you talked about the square footage. Could you talk about the dimensions facing Route 1 and on the long side? I guess this is the western side. And I think this is like 112 feet or something like that. So I'm just curious as how many linear feet are facing Route 1 and how many are on the western side. And then a question also about any kind of signage you'll be putting up that would be exposed to Route 1.
As far as the signage goes, that's part of a separate application, but you can see it on our renderings. Essentially, no signage facing Route 1. This would be the back of the building. So what we're proposing is kind of your typical kind of retro-looking U-Haul logo facing I-95. This part right here is facing the interior of the site. So there is a very small little U-Haul storage sign right here. As far as the front of the building, this is what's facing Boston Post Road. There's no signage proposed there. So what you're going to see is really just the building.
I think that what they're expecting is that the trucks parked in front will serve as signage.
And your second question was on the dimensions. So the width of the front of the structure from end to end will be 112 feet. The length of the building kind of going from Route 1 towards 95, that'll be 184 feet, and that's kind of this dimension you see here. And then the back, it actually gets a little bit narrower in the back. The back of the property, the building will be 92 feet. Oh, the height, so the height in this zone is restricted to 40 feet. We are just under 40 feet, so I think we're maybe half an inch shy of 40 feet. So, and it is important to note that the site does drop back from Boston Post Road, so it does drop a couple feet before we get to the finished floor elevation. So it will look somewhat sunken. So it's not going to be 40 feet right on Boston Post Road. And we did get a variance to set that building back 70 feet from the street line. So it's not going to be this looming structure. It's going to be set back 70 feet from the street line. And there is a lot of landscaping in front of the site kind of breaking up that building too. You can't see it here. You can see in the plan below, but there's currently a whole, there's a row of evergreen trees here. So maybe it's best to yeah, this kind of gives you an idea of how the landscaping interacts with the building. This would be coming from the east. There's an existing row of evergreen trees. So we're essentially, our building starts where those trees are. They're fully mature trees. You're not really going to see it coming from the east, coming from Madison. On the front side of the site, significant landscaping improvements. As I said before, I think it was 46 shade trees we're adding on site, and you can see these in the front of the site. So we did try to set the building as far back as we could from Post Road, break it up with some landscaping, screen it the best we could.
You're making it look, and just clarify this, you're making it look as if the trees that will be in place after construction is complete will actually be higher than the building.
Yeah, this represents at maturity. So when they're planted, and that's not our landscape plan, I think they're, and I'll confirm this.
And they're deciduous?
It's also the perspective.
Yeah, the trees in the front are deciduous trees. We're also proposing a number of evergreen trees. So it's going to be a mix of native vegetation throughout the site. And to answer your question about the size of the trees, I believe they're 2.5-inch caliber, but I'll confirm that for you. So as planted, about 15 feet, mature 30 to 40 feet, would be 20 years down the road or so.
Is there any lighting along the sidewalk that you're?
Can you actually state your name for the
I'm
record?
sorry.
That's okay, go ahead. You could ask a question, just so we have it for the record.
Okay, yeah, Sarah Kellogg at 335 Boston Street. Will there also be lighting along the sidewalk that you're putting in?
There will be no lighting illuminating the sidewalk, so the sidewalk's going to stay right away. So the intent of our lighting is to really illuminate our site and keep it, within our property line, so we're not trying to extend that lighting beyond our property. And that would be, that's a state right away, so if the state wanted to light that, that would be kind of their decision.
Any other questions? Go, you can come up.
Gus Kellogg again, 335 Boston Street. Quick question on refueling. Will there be any fuel storage and refueling of vehicles on site?
No.
Okay. Can we have the lighting diagram, the site lighting diagram? So my question on this is what actually is changing in this night shift, the 10:30 p.m. to 6 a.m.? To my eye, it looks like it's 3 or 4 street lights or lights close to the street. Other than that, there's no perceptible difference. What's the actual change in number of lights?
So I believe as far as site lighting goes, we're turning on, as you can see, this is the morning, this is the evening, all the site lighting will be on. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're reducing that to 3 lights on the exterior of the site. And really, the big difference is that we're turning off the accent light inside the building. So the building at night is not going to be illuminated. We need to keep some lights on the site for safety purposes to identify where the entrances to the site were. But yeah, to answer your question, the reduction would be 4, abutting Tanner Marsh Road, Boston Post Road, we'll be reducing it by 4. And then additionally, inside the building.
Yes, Steve Esposito, 266 Copper Hill Road.
Okay,
I have a question about storage.
go ahead.
Is this going to be only inside storage, no outside storage?
Correct.
And contractors are renting these out, work on them every day?
You get contractors out and
We'll certainly. We do not have a contractor selected yet, but we will be bidding out the contract for sure.
No, contractors using the storage facility.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Work
yeah.
on them every day as
No. We will never have a business operating. I apologize for that. It's against our policy to, you mean to have like a retail operation?
They can be held vehicles?
No, absolutely not. Yeah, there'll be no way to get them inside.
Okay, great.
All right, any other questions? Yeah, if you can come up, makes it easier.
Sure.
Hi, Paul Anastas, 25 Den Hollow Road. I was just curious, given all of the concern that has been expressed over the past year or more, and given that as far as I can think, there's nothing about self-storage that requires a view or sunlight. Why is any of this above ground?
I think I could try to answer that. I mean, I think it's just, there's, extreme cost concerns of building 40 feet underground. It just wouldn't be a feasible project if we wanted to go underground with that. And there's also, there's wetlands here, would be in the wetlands, so significant construction and cost issues associated with that.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thanks. Again, Sarah Kellogg. Mr. Frey, I have a question for you, having done the appraisals. You said you did not have a number of the homes within a half-mile radius of the proposed site. Is that correct?
Part of our impact study.
It was not.
No, it was a pre and a post
Right, but,
analysis of
so did I misunderstand the point of the appraisal study? Was it not to look at the potential effect on property values within that area?
It is, and what you have to do to establish that is you have to have sales that occurred before construction and sales that occurred after.
Mm-hmm.
So the relevance of homes within a half-mile radius, the total, wasn't a major concern for us. What was the main concern was if there was enough activity to see if there was an impact on value.
Mm-hmm.
So those selected sales that we chose were ones that were in the 1/2 mile radius that sold before and sold after.
Okay. So just from a laywoman's perspective, I grew up in the neighborhood across the street, Horseshoe Road, and there are many neighborhoods within walking distance of this area, a lot of homes to people that are concerned about their property values. And I speak for my mom, who's 84 and still lives there and will probably be selling in the next 5 to 10 years. And also several friends who couldn't be here tonight. When I look at your Brantford comp, that is actually in close proximity to the Subaru dealership, another car dealership, the Brantford Vet, the Brantford High School. There aren't quite the same kind of cluster neighborhoods that Horseshoe Road represents, or Sperry Drive, or, thank you, Michelle Lane. So I think it's not quite comparable, nor is it comparable to the rock pile at the west end of Guilford, which is across from the Guilford Recycling and Dump. So I think it's not fair to say that this won't have an impact. I really don't know that we can say that. I'm quite sure that we can't, because we don't have something comparable. And if I can just make the point to the committee, I don't really know how many more storage units we need. There are over 600 in Madison already. There are 2 storage facilities in Guilford, and there are at least 4 in Brantford, including one that is of this size and magnitude on Brantford Hill, which is an incredibly commercial and industrial area. We call it Hamburger Hill. We have for years. A lot of people choose Guilford for its character, its neighborly community and community feel. And I think if this were going up within a quarter mile or less of any of your homes, you'd be rather concerned and upset about it. Even with all the wonderful planning and things that they've done to try to make this, fit into the neighborhood, it's just not part of the neighborhood of Guilford. So I just wanted.
Any questions? We'll take comments next. Any questions? Okay.
Mike Sassine, Inwood Drive. I just want to drill down on this nighttime interior lighting scheme. You say that at night there's going to only, as far as interior lighting goes, there's only going to be recessed hallway lighting on the inside at night. But you also imply that that's going to be some sort of mitigation of what's typically done at other U-Haul facilities. And so I'd just like to understand what exactly is the difference between the nighttime interior
recessed hall lighting at this proposed development versus the new facility in Groton, which, just screams U-Haul at night?
Yep, I mean, that's a very good question. And, this was a serious concern of design review, and we went through models at length with them to kind of describe what it would look like. So those lights that you're seeing in these other facilities, those are accent lighting. So that's, the intent of those are to kind of illuminate the storage units. Those will not be on in this facility. So the only lighting that's going to be on is what you're going to see in a typical retail store at night. Just enough lighting to get around the hallways. So it's not going to be a high intensity light. It's not going to be, we're not trying to advertise this building at night. We're just trying to keep it safe at night.
Any other questions? We'll do comments after, but.
Robert
yeah.
Lappin, 543 Boston Street. I was just thinking, I can't believe that somebody could say that it's not going to affect traffic. It has to. I mean, just last week, right in front of my house, there was 2 accidents. And that's just not normal, because it's a very bad intersection. So now I know you're going to have more cars. I'm not a genius, but I'm not an idiot. So to me, it's just, I can't accept that answer. Now, you're saying that, it's a scenic route. So 146. So you're going, which way are you going? You're either going to take the scenic route on 146, then hit Route 1, and then you're going to see that enormous building. Or vice versa. If you're going from Madison, you're going to see that giant building, and then you're going to go down a nice scenic route. Now, I was wondering, curious, now when you bought the property, did you have the, what's the right word? Did you have the planning already to make the building almost like the Branford one? Or did that just pop up, gee, let's make it high like Branford? Question, answer?
I'll take it.
I'll get that answer. We haven't bought the building yet. We have an option to purchase.
All right. Was your question, how is it like the Branford building, or why is it?
Well, no, what I'm saying is this is going to be tall and lit up like the one in Branford. Okay. But I was thinking if they had that idea, why didn't they go to like Soundview, which has an industrial park, where they could have done anything they wanted and it wouldn't affect any houses, any traffic or anything. And, my house is, like I said, 543 Boston Street. Now, is that going to affect my house, that lighting? Now, they're saying that at night they're going to tone it down, or they can tone it down.
Maybe, is there any way you could show this individual the photometrics to show him where the light is going to spill and how far that light is supposed to spill over at night, to maybe make him feel more comfortable with the lighting aspect of it?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so I'm 543 Boston Street. You can show me roughly where my house is and where, and tell me it's not going to affect.
I'm not familiar with where that
Right where
particular
the road
property-
splits.
Route
1 and 146, or Boston Street.
Okay, so we studied I'll show you where. So we have a photometric plan here. So we studied the impact of our lighting at the property line. So unfortunately, I don't have a board, so not everyone can look at it. But I do have. We did a number of studies, and we can give you a copy of these plans to review yourself. So we put together a photometric plan, and essentially what this does is we run a computer analysis. It'll take, these are, typical fixtures in manufacturers have typical light levels, they have, throw distances and that such. So, if you look at these light levels, you're seeing, 0.0, you're seeing 0.1, you're seeing 0.3. So that's a foot candle. So 1 foot candle would be the intensity of a candle a foot away from your face. So we're looking at the property line, 0.1, 0.4, 0.3. So this is, we really tried to keep the lighting to a minimum. So we know we're in Guilford, we're there's residential units around us. We're not trying to impact the surrounding properties. And on this side of the property, there is existing evergreen trees that are screening, over here. We did put in a significant amount of landscape shade trees, evergreen trees. So we tried to contain the site, the best we could. And we were sensitive to that. So we're not, oblivious to the neighbors, and we've worked, I think, very closely with the town to come to a solution.
All right, if that doesn't work out, are you guaranteeing us, because you said you can control the lights, that you will dim them lower?
You guys want to speak to that?
Well, okay, I'm sorry, Sue, I'll let you then. I have one more thing.
We had many sessions with the design review committee to agree upon that 0.4 candle power at the street. I mean, it's virtually nothing. It's the brightness of a cell phone. They are dimmable. We want to be good neighbors. I suppose we could view your concerns, but it's literally as low as a light can be.
All right. And then the last thing was, I forgot who said it, they mentioned Heller's, Mannix, whatever you want to say, being a historic site. It won't be there anymore. You're going to bulldoze it down and build this.
No.
Basically, you're tearing it down.
That's incorrect. The building here is the original Mannix building, and our goal is to do the opposite. We wish to not tear it down. We want to beautify it and bring it back to its original beauty. Right now, it's in disrepair. It's got leaks in the roof. It's pretty decrepit.
I know the building.
Yeah, I know you do. I'm sure you see it every day. And my goal is to continue.
I misunderstood. I thought that you were going to eliminate the building
Absolutely
and just
not.
start all over again.
No, we want to make it look.
Be historic.
Yep, there'll be a renovation of the historic building right here. So, and the elevations can be seen here.
Yes.
And we actually designed, this site to be more of a campus. So this building will speak to the historic aspect of the Mannix building, with the gables, with the glass. So we were cognizant of that, and we're really just trying to clean up the site.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Yep.
Kathy, 10 Horseshoe Road. Didn't get a clear answer on how many units.
Can you just come up a little bit? I'm sorry.
Okay. How many units were in the?
I think it's between,
I think 400. Okay, thank you. And the other thing is, I'm not clear on, you said, is it 24 hours open? Somebody can have access to it 24 hours a day, is that right?
There is a possibility of that, yeah. But it's typically only reserved for executive clients that have the need. They need to prove.
So when they sign a contract, does everybody get a contract
You have
that
to pay
says they
extra.
have
You have to
access
pay extra
24?
to have 24 hours.
Okay, thank you.
are there any U-Haul facilities around the country that do not have 24-hour access for storage?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. Are there any other questions? And then we'll get to comments. Okay, yes.
One question. Steve Kramer.
If you could come up, because we got to pick you up on the...
Steve Kramer, 1 Cornfield Lane. I have a question on the height of the building. Okay, so I understand, I guess, it's within code. However, is it possible to have a concern because when you drive up the hill, the buildings that are there, even though the Mannix building is a little bit larger in the back, but there's that factory that's there, and they're basically one-story buildings. And if we allow a 40-foot building, does that then give anybody else that wants to build on either side more justification to do the same? And if that were the case, that speaks to the character of the area, because as you go up the hill and you're heading towards the river, and even when you pass the river, you're not going to see the size of those buildings on that side either.
Well, the 40 feet has to go with our zoning code, so anyone in that area can build 40 feet. high. That's just the way it is. Unless we change the zoning code, which we have not. If there are any other questions, I actually have to read this one letter into the record from Kevin McGee before I open the floor for comments. I did not do it earlier today. It's dated April 4th. Attorney Pellegrini, did you actually get a copy of this letter from Kevin? Dated April 4th today? Okay, well, I'm going to read it, and then you can take it from me if you'd like. The applicant has completed the checklist to guide low-impact development-based management practices and is utilizing some of the recommended practices. The proposed plans show the development being constructed on the portion of the property that formerly contained an asphalt pile. The landscape plan shows the installation of 14 street trees along Boston Post Road and Tanner Marsh. The recommended species of trees is in compliance with the Route 1 East Planning and Design Guidelines. The stormwater system has been developed utilizing a low-impact design principles. The stormwater management system consists of an overland runoff to a catch basin and roof leaders that discharge into a two-chamber detention basin designed to treat the first inch of rainfall. The stormwater system is also designed to attenuate off-site discharge at approximately existing levels. The plans for the project have sedimentation and erosion control procedures that are in compliance with 273-97B subsection 6 of the zoning regulations. The Guilford Inland Wetlands Commission at its March 8, 2017 meeting approved a regulated activity with conditions for the coastal construction of an infiltration system, discharge of stormwater, and site grading with 100 jurisdictional review zone within the 100-foot jurisdictional review zone. In addition, the commission referred favorably on the site plan application to the Planning and Zoning Commission. In order to make sure the wetlands are protected, I recommend the following conditions of approval. First, the Town of Guilford Zoning Enforcement Office should be notified to inspect the sedimentation and erosion control measures prior to any site construction. Second, to assure future compliance with the stormwater management system in accordance to 273-75F of the zoning code. Upon approval of the site plan application, but prior to the commencement of any work, the applicant shall execute an agreement and file bond with the Planning and Zoning Commission to guarantee completion and maintenance of the work required by the approved stormwater management plan. B, a written maintenance and operation manual for stormwater management systems located at the site. The manual should provide provisions for yearly inspection, maintenance of stormwater system, and yearly reports to the town engineer and zoning enforcement officer. The maintenance schedule should also include, but not be limited to, weekly, monthly, and quarterly inspections of the property for litter, monitoring the dumpster and outside storage areas, monitoring of the catch basins, the removal of accumulated material and non-native invasive species in the swales and stormwater detention system. The maintenance of the plan needs to provide a statement that the stormwater management plan will be reviewed annually so that the inspection maintenance requirements may be modified and any changes to the plan would require the approval of the town engineer. C, an as-built drawing of the completed stormwater system prepared in accordance with section 273-75F, stormwater management, subsection 6, construction. And D, the applicant shall file a maintenance covenant on the land records as required by section 273-75F, stormwater management, subsection 7, maintenance covenants of the town of Guilford zoning code. Do you have any problems with any of those conditions that Kevin would like?
They're pretty much
It's
identical
standard.
to the
Yeah.
wetland approval.
Okay.
Do we have a copy?
Yeah, you can take this one. Okay. Any comments against the application? Okay, so we have a lot. We have a few minutes for the video. We have fun.
What do we go for?
Yeah. I'm gonna try to, everyone's gonna be able to talk. Remember, we do have a second public hearing on this, and I'm gonna try to limit everyone who talks to no more than 5 minutes because we don't want to run on forever. So I'll take one person against right now, and then, come up, and then we'll move on after the 5 minutes. Okay. Yep.
My name is David Milano. I live at 58 River Street. I just wanted to pass out a couple things to you while I speak. So I have a few comments.
Can you actually, do you have an extra copy for council?
Yeah, I do have one more copy. Sure. A few comments. So first of all, within that packet is a letter that we put together, which I'm not going to read in its entirety because it's a little bit long and probably doesn't keep the audience entertained too much. A couple other things, there's some photos of existing U-Haul sites, not renderings, but actual photos, and including the Guilford site and the Groton site. And also included there is a report from an appraiser with a negative view of the impact of the U-Haul proposal on the neighborhood. And there's a memo regarding the trucks, which our attorney John Lambert is going to further expound upon in a few minutes. So I'm just going to read more of a summary of the letter that's in there. But just as a way to identify ourselves, we've been following this application for a variety of reasons, one of which is that we own a residentially zoned property on the south side of Boston Post Road, which is near this project. A few points. So first of all, this application requires a special permit for 4 different reasons, and there's a few mandatory items that it just does not seem to meet. First of all, mandatory item 2 of the special permit criteria requires that Boston Post Road must be protected from, quote, overscaled structures and excessive car-oriented frontages, unquote, and that, quote, frontages will have a village appeal, unquote. The proposed project fails all of the above requirements for this mandatory item. It's overscaled, its frontage is excessively car-oriented, and it's devoid of village appeal. Perhaps a 1-story village-style storage building would comply, and while Design Review tried to mitigate the massive appearance of this building with some architectural features, a 50,000 square foot 3-story building on a crest of a hill is just simply too big for this area of town. In addition, the regulations prohibit trademark buildings and state that, quote, franchise businesses may be allowed only if their buildings are designed to harmonize with the historic and distinctive character of the town, unquote. This proposed new building will display 3 floors of U-Haul's orange storage doors through the windows with 24/7 lighting to some extent in all directions. That's the first mandatory item. The second mandatory item that doesn't seem to comply is mandatory item number 4 of the special permit criteria, which requires, quote, effective screening of parking areas from public view, unquote. In this area of town, vehicles are not supposed to be in view but screened. This proposed project fails to meet this requirement as the applicant seeks to park trucks and trailers in public view for advertising purposes. Third mandatory special permit item that does not meet is that it requires, quote, visibility of light sources should be minimized, unquote. The plan submitted to Planning and Zoning Commission shows opaque windows, and there's been some statements back and forth, some of which are different from what was said at the January 10th design review meeting, at which the applicant stated that hallway lights would be on all the time for security purposes, as they mentioned tonight, not on motions, but on all the time for security purposes.
So we will come back and we'll give you the rest of your time. We just need to change out the tapes
Sure.
for the recording, and then, so we're going to stop for right now. Okay?
Okay, good.
All right. So we'll take a 5-minute break.
We have no business.
We haven't conducted any business off the record. We're back. We're keeping to about a 5-minute comment per person. and then if there's time at the end, we'll circle back. So you're at about 3, so you got about 2 minutes left.
Okay.
And you're on the clock.
All right, good. Start now. Okay, so just to pick up where we left off, mandatory item 2 of the special permit criteria not met, overscaled structure. Mandatory item 4, not met, parking areas not screened. Mandatory item 7, which is the visibility of light sources being minimized. Where I left off was that at the design review committee, you all stated that hallway lights would be on all the time, and they stated that the internal wall would be washed with light, which doesn't totally jibe with what they're saying tonight. Although, if you have a recessed light in a hallway, it's got to light something up, I would think. Otherwise, what's the purpose of the light? If you add up, and there's a lot of windows on this property, as a couple people have pointed out, if you add up all of this area of windows, which you all stated they would like to light up all the exterior hallways, it equates to the size of more than 10 illuminated billboards. And against a dark night sky, it does not take much to be able to see inside a building, regardless of the light level. The handout shows U-Haul's self-storage facility in Groton, which is brand new, which clearly you can see it from about a half mile away, right off after you get off I-95. You can see those orange storage doors day and night, straight through those windows. One more item at the design review committee meeting. U-Haul also cited, quote, that most retail establishments had some lighting at night, unquote, in order to display their product, which U-Haul has reiterated tonight. Given that there are no 3-story retail structures in Guilford, the visibility of U-Haul's interior lighting would really be incomparable to that of any building in the town of Guilford. And further, if we're talking retail, and if U-Haul's 50,000 square foot building is to be considered a retail building, the zoning code should really limit the size of the building to 25,000 square feet under Guilford's big box restrictions. Those are the 3 special permit points. I have a couple other points, one regarding the trucks, which I'll let our attorney, John Lambert's here tonight. I'll let him speak about that since I'm on the clock.
We'll circle back to you at the end. I just want to make sure that everyone has an
Yeah,
opportunity.
I'm just going to make a couple brief points. One brief point is there's photos in there of actual U-Haul facilities. The general appearance is a concern. I know it was a concern last year as well. Not renderings, but actual photos of facilities. And finally, a point in that letter, my final point, is related to the building height. So U-Haul is clearly trying to max out this site to every extent possible, from the size of the building, 50,000 square feet, to the impervious surface. They're at 59.9% out of a 60% max. And in a couple areas, they're trying to go beyond the maximum, in the case of the truck parking and in the case of the building height. U-Haul's application last year showed a building height that was 6 to 7 feet too tall, which we actually had to point out was illegal. Now, the current application partially corrects the error, but the building is still above the height requirement. And a brief explanation, if you'll give me one more minute. If you all remember the big mountain of asphalt on the site previously, it's created an artificially high grade on the site that results in an artificially tall building height. Building height is measured from the natural grade prior to any grading or filling of the lot. If you look at both the applicant's soil testing data and previous surveys of the property, it suggests that 2 to 3 feet of asphalt or other fill has been added to the lot, upon which U-Haul is basing their grade, which gives you a building height of 42 to 43 feet above the natural grade. So a quick conclusion, and the conclusion is that even though the zoning code was amended in 2013 to even allow this project to be proposed, pretty recent amendment, it does not mean that every proposed self-storage project should be approved. This project, 50,000 square feet, 3-story illuminated building, is definitely not keeping within Guilford's character and certainly does not meet the regulations. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak against the application? Okay, yes, come up.
Again, for the record, it's Gus Kellogg, 335 Boston Street. I've actually been a customer of U-Haul. I rented a van as recently as November to run down to Sears and get a new oven to cook the Thanksgiving turkey. That's just to say I'm aware of the need for your products, for your services, and in fact use them myself. I'm a native of Guilford. I grew up in North Guilford working on one of the last dairy farms, so kind of the agrarian history of our town is quite important to me. Mr. Brown, you pointed out that there's a farm just across the highway about, 200-300 feet away from this property, so actually, the reach of our agrarian roots is not far from this proposed site. About 0.2 of a mile down the street on Route 146, you'll see a sign entering historic Guilford. Another 0.2 of a mile down the street, so 0.4 of a mile from this proposed site, is my home. It's a farmhouse built in 1883, and I want to just thread a quick story here within the 5 minutes. So my wife and I moved away. We both grew up in Guilford, went to Guilford High School, and went to college and moved on for several years and came back to Connecticut and then thought about raising our family and said, where do we want to live? Well, we wanted to live in Guilford, but we didn't think we could afford it. We looked at houses in Brantford and Clinton. Ultimately, we decided that really we wanted to be in Guilford because it's such a well-preserved town. And this is where we wanted to raise our kids. And we actually stretched our budget to buy a house in Guilford so that we could be here for the schools, for the downtown green community, for all the positives that Guilford has to offer. And now, 15 years on in this house, 16 years on in this house, 17 years on in this house, we've really come to love this kind of downtown community. Again, coming from a guy who grew up, in the farms of North Guilford. I am quite concerned about the value of my home. I don't agree with the report that was given earlier. I think the Brantford case, as it has been pointed out, is really not apples to apples. Your job as a commission is to review this and make sure that it conforms. I'm not here to comment on that so much as I believe your job is also to preserve the value of my home, somebody who is invested in this community. And I'm not opposed to U-Haul, but I am vehemently opposed to this 3-story, 50,000 square foot self-storage unit. That is not in keeping with what this town is about. We moved back to this town because Guilford hasn't developed Route 1 like Brantford. And we should not develop Route 1 like Brantford. Thank you.
All right, anyone else against the application? Yes, come up.
Sarah Kellogg, representing the other half of 335 Boston Street. So my husband basically spoke to many of the issues I was going to speak to. I do want to add that we lived in lovely Boulder, Colorado for 10 years before moving back to Guilford, which was kind of a challenging move, but I saw the development out there, and it was strip mall after strip mall after strip mall, and you can say, well, you can still see the Rocky Mountains, but it's distracting to have these huge big box stores one after the other. As I referred to Brantford Hill earlier, you've all seen it. Do you want to live there? Do you want it in your backyard? Do you even really want to drive by it every single day? Now, that may sound snobby to a lot of people, but the reality is we choose residents in Guilford for its historic charm and value, for its seaside community, and as Gus referred to, for the community of people. And there's an architecture and a landscape that goes along with it. Growing up, every time we hit the crest of that hill, I got the best view of the sunset over Guilford. And it sounds corny, but that's something I would like to see preserved. And I think if you're kind of fending off the glare of a 50,000 square foot well-lit building that will be accessed 24/7, and you're fighting the traffic of 66 cars, I cannot believe they don't have the numbers for how many cars are visiting that facility now. I would imagine as a business you do have that information, so perhaps you could bring that to the next meeting. But I would implore you as a commission and a committee that is charged with the responsibility of protecting our town's character to really consider all of the things that have been said against this application tonight. We appreciate so much your time in volunteering and combing through all the details. It's got to be a challenging and painstaking task. But, again, I just want to say that if you should allow this, we're setting a precedent. And we know with big business in America, that's just a snowball effect. So this will not be the last time that we're at this table. And again, if you open this door, it's what's next, and then after that, and after that. And then we do become like Brantford and Milford and all these other more commercialized, industrialized zones. So please keep Guilford, Guilford. That's what I'd like to ask you to do. Thanks.
No, not you. Anyone else? Okay, come up. This is just against now. We'll do the positive next.
Hi, folks. Chris Russo, 203 Boston Post Road. I totally echo what the Kellogg's are saying here, and without going into every point that they made so eloquently, I'm going to say basically the same thing. 2 years ago, my wife and I moved from Milford, and we came up the line to just try to find a small town, and we fell in love with Guilford. We looked at many houses, and we actually chose one right on the Post Road because of the fact that Guilford is such a small, quaint community that we could actually live on the Post Road and actually feel like we're still living in a small town, as opposed to the reasons why we left Milford. And while U-Haul, and again, everybody's used some a facility or a van or something from U-Haul, and I'm not denying their need, but I'm very much against the large storage facility. I think that the Guilford Post Road needs to be preserved. I think we're doing good things. The projects that are happening, I just kind of feel like this is going to take us, kind of like down in it, as we travel down the Post Road and we see these industrial buildings, when I leave Brantford and I come into Guilford, I actually feel like, I almost feel relieved, because I feel like now I'm in this quiet little cute little community, and I just really want it to stay that way, guys, and that's kind of why I'm here. I've never been to a meeting like this before or said anything against any other buildings, but appreciate the time. Thank you.
Anyone else that'd like to speak against? Yes. Well, I'm going to give you the floor, so, yeah.
I would prefer that
Yeah.
Again, Mike Sassine in Wood Drive. I should mention that Dave Milano is my brother-in-law, but I'm here to speak before the commission in my capacity as a resident taxpayer and business owner, almost adjacent to this proposed project. So whatever happens on this property, I'll be driving by it 2-3 times a day at a minimum. And I should also mention that I share your pain serving on the commission for several years. It's been a while, but I understand you have a difficult decision before you. I understand we want to encourage development of new businesses and expand our tax base while providing needed services for the community, all the while protecting Guilford's character and charm. I personally have reviewed the details of this proposal, and I just can't see the commission on which I served approving this project. It's way too big and overscaled. The size, siting, and 24/7 lighting is going to be an eyesore. It doesn't bring much in the way of tax revenue. Based on an assessment of the 52,000 square foot storage building in Brantford, I calculated a potential savings to the median household of about $3 a year. Okay, so I want you to take, when people argue that all development is going to increase our tax base, you need to listen to that, but you also need to take it with a grain of salt and look at the materiality of the tax impact. And this isn't a high material tax impact project. It just isn't. And the project doesn't provide our community with needed or valued services that enhance our quality of life. I can see why the town wants something done with this parcel, but this something is going to be there for generations. We can and should wait for a better something. If we keep Guilford attractive, an attractive project will come to Guilford, one that is scaled to the neighborhood, one that brings in higher tax revenue, one that better serves the needs of our citizens, and one that keeps Guilford Guilford and does not take us down the slippery path of our Route 1 becoming like Brantford or Milford. So I urge you to deny this application. If you are inclined to approve the project, send the applicant back to bring down the scale, beef up the green screening, tone down the lighting, and make the project more in keeping with how we want it our town to showcase, as stating the obvious, but it's not a site plan approval. This is a special permit for storage facility, which has only been introduced as a permitted use via special permit in 2013. It used to be absolutely prohibited, so I think we need to proceed with caution. Thank you.
Yeah.
Lori Kramer, 1 Cornfield Lane, 32-year resident. Please don't destroy Guilford.
Stephanie Scungio, 71 Horseshoe Road. So at the risk of redundancy, here it comes. I moved to Guilford just a few years ago, and I chose it over the neighboring Clinton and Branford and all of those towns because I was attracted to the scenery on Route 1 and the, leading up to the neighborhood and the Horseshoe Road and the quaint look and feel of the shoreline town and the charming character. Please do not encourage projects that will erode the character that brought me here in the first place. This storage facility is going to be less than appealing, oversized for the area. It's not an industrial area. It's our main route that provides travelers with an impression of our town and its desirability. This eyesore would be better placed in a less visible or an industrial area, and allowing it, I think, will be a slippery slope.
Yes.
Paul Anastas, 25 Den Hollow Road. So it would be easy to say that I have no direct interest in this parcel. I have no financial interest. I'm not an abutter, so I don't have the interest of an abutter. But I moved here and raised my 2 little daughters. And I plan to be here for the rest of my life. I hope they're here for the rest of their lives. So yeah, I have every possible interest in the development of this parcel. And there's a reason why I truly appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. It's because this is a deliberative body. You're never going to be replaced by robots or computers or artificial intelligence, because you're not here, as you know, just to talk about setbacks or height restrictions. You are the guardians of Guilford. You are the guardians of what Guilford will look like 20, 30, 50 years. My daughters are old and gray. So what's tremendously important to me, and what I know is tremendously important to you, is preserving that character that we're hearing about, that character of Guilford. Now, I could go on about specifics, about when I hear that it's going to be too expensive to lower the height or to go underground. Expensive to whom? I get that it's going to be expensive to you, but the idea of privatizing gains while socializing losses to the public is not something that ever should be acceptable. The idea that there will be 52 billboards disguised as trucks with 6 in front and 7 on the side or whatever should be viewed as antithetical to the character of Guilford. You know, I talk to my friends and we often say, what is our duty as citizens of Guilford when we think about the things that are so unique to Guilford? And the things that we often say is that it's about preserving the irreplaceable and preventing the irresponsible. That's what we're really talking about tonight. And that's why I have confidence that when looking at this decision as to whether to grant special permits, it's not just going to be about setbacks and height restrictions, and it's going to be about character. Thank you.
Before I get to council, I just want to ask if anyone would like to speak in favor of the application.
I would.
Come up, please.
Thank you. My name is Christine Sema. I live at 274 Tanner Marsh Road, and I am well within the half mile. I moved here 4.5 years ago. I grew up in Killingworth. Once I got here, I found out from my dad that my great-grandfather to the 10th was actually the first blacksmith here, so I feel like I belong. For 4.5 years, I've looked at the historical Mannix building. I don't really consider it historical. I would love to see it renovated. I would love to see it pretty. I would love to see plants all around it, and I would love to see it look like Guilford. I wish U-Haul all the luck in doing that. I consider myself a guardian of Guilford, so I became the general manager of this facility. I have no intention of doing what I can anyway to let U-Haul ruin Guilford, and I believe with every fiber in my body, in the same faith that I have for other things, that U-Haul doesn't either. It is not U-Haul's intention to have this big building come in and destroy Guilford. I have a list in my desk, actually, of people who already want storage. I have turned people away who say that they want their car parked and their RV and their boat. I know a lot of you go to the dump, and I have to shorten everybody's trips to the dump because so many people want to use our pickup trucks to go there. I can't wait to get big, huge planters and have us look just like the Green and have seasonal plants built there. So my phone number is on the door, and I urge you to come to me and tell me if there's anything that I can do. If those lights are too bright and we can turn them down, I absolutely, personally will be your voice to everybody else that's in here. And thank you for that consideration.
Is there anyone else that'd like to speak in favor of the application? Yes.
Jason Markey again, 29 Horseshoe Road. I know I live in the Sunrise community, and some people might be surprised based on my position. I've been in town for 55 years, 5 months, and I grew up in the Sunrise neighborhood. And I've seen Route 1 in 50 years develop tremendously all along. There used to be just farmers' fields out there. There was the old A&P right now where Walmart is and all those places, and that big building on the other side. Those were just big empty fields. So Route 1 has been developed for a long, long time. I think the town has worked very hard to make sure that Route 1 doesn't look like Brantford Hill, which it certainly doesn't. I spent an hour going over these plans, and I spent 2 years training in residential architecture. And when I saw how this front is cut up here, how this part is set back, and this is the 114 feet or so that faces Route 1, and it's kind of really hiding this third story back here. I think this is pretty appealing. I would be against having very, very bright lights in here, certainly, that would come out looking orange. But the way the roof lines are cut up, this is what an architect does. We have a very ugly old Guilford gravure building next to this on the east side, which will block the look here, and with the trees being here also. So you'll be visually looking at one floor building and then going up to this 3-story building. So that'll be breaking the line. You've got a very ugly water tower. You've got 2 huge cell towers there and a diner that doesn't look very appealing. But all of that will be hiding this. I think if you look at the design plan for the trees becoming mature over time, that they've put a lot of thought in setting the building back and designing it to look good. The only billboard aspect is facing the highway, and as the building inspector in town said, who cares how it looks facing the highway? I just want to remind everybody here that this building, after talking to everybody in the town that I know, is conforming to be approved. If it's denied, the legal right is to reappeal it, and oftentimes when these things are appealed, they're approved. So I also disagree with that we'll lose a tax, that we won't have a lot of tax revenue coming from this, because you're probably talking a couple $1 million total, which will add to the value, to the, what's it called? What's the term? The grand list, thank you. I think I'm almost out of time. What was the last thing I was going to say? I think there's just a lot of work. Oh yeah, it's a very ugly lot right now. I know they've tried to attract restaurants, all sorts of other kinds of places to come to take up this property and build something good there. and no one wants to come to town. We see that, property taxes are going to have to continue to go up to pay for the $90 million high school. I think anything like this, to me, is a pretty darn good design to utilize that space and help broaden the commercial tax base and do it tastefully, as most of Route 1 has been developed tastefully. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that likes to speak in favor? All right, you're up.
Good evening. My name's John Lambert. I'm an attorney, licensed practice lawyer in Connecticut, and I office at 25 Trumbull Place in North Haven, Connecticut. I represent Boston Post Road LLC, which is a Milano family-owned LLC, and they own property about 150 feet away. They own the closest residential property to this, the vacant residential property. I'd like to pass out what I call a supplemental memorandum that I filed, because a year ago I filed a 15-page memorandum on the question of abandonment. And you've been given a copy of that. Been given a copy of that in Mr. Milano's packet, I believe. So I'm not going to go over that right now, but I'd like to take some time on this. On the cover of this, I just like to point out that the manager here has just talked about how proud she is of what a guardian of Guilford she is, and the front page shows the trucks with nothing but advertising parked right up against the landscaping, and I assure you, there is no site plan that has ever permitted that. There was a complaint filed with them, with Reggie Reed 2 years ago. She told them, well, get a site plan in and then I don't have to do anything. But not doing anything by your zoning enforcement officer is not the same as a permission from you to have those vehicles there. So every day, for the past year that I've been involved, there have been 7, 8 trucks with this huge, nothing but advertising. And one of them I showed you, and this is from only a month or so ago. Grass Island Moving and Storage. That's advertising. And it's right there. And then there's the $19.95 a day. And the huge signs in each cup taking up each windshield. So I've already addressed, and I'll address in 2 weeks if I need to, but I would hope that Mr. Andrus has had that memo for a year. Mr. Pellegrino's had that memo for a year. You guys, I don't know if they ever gave it to you, but you have it tonight, and you have a chance to read it. There's graphics in it. I tried to explain it historically, what was allowed there. And so I'll go over that briefly, because Mr. Pellegrino filed, let me go back, just back a step. A year ago, this commission asked Mr. Andrus that question, or he on his own addressed it to the applicant. Was the approval in 2010 of Grass Island Market, did that extinguish the use, no, we won't do that, in the front for display of vehicles for sale or rental? Because the plan that was approved and submitted in 2010 only showed parking for customers in that area. So in this I addressed, and it's addressed actually in the first one fairly clearly, Mr. Pellegrino has filed a affidavit from Mr. Mannix, who still owns the property. And Mr. Mannix says, I never intended to abandon any use that I had. I'm keeping all my rights, always intended to. And he says, further says, and it was continued to be used from 2000 when the 50-foot setback went in till 2016. That's what he says. Under oath, swears to God that this is true. But if you look at my memo, you'll see that on page, I think it's if you take the cover page, the third page in, I have 2 photos. And Mr. Milano introduced a couple of photos from June of 2015. No U-Hauls in the front yard in 2015. So Mr. Mannix is not telling the truth that this was used for display of motor vehicles. So he signed the Mr. Mannix signed the application for allowing his son and his daughter-in-law to apply for Grass Island Market. He signed it, so he gave them the approval to ask for what they asked for. They asked for, and we'll put it in if we need to next time, the press covered it. This was to get rid of a dealership and to establish this high-end antiques market. The site plan showed only parking for customers in the front, not any parking of any U-Haul vehicles. And then a Mr. Grigsby, in the minutes, and it's in both of my memos, Mr. Grigsby asked the question, well, where's the U-Haul? Because they said the U-Haul use in the back was going to maintain. Where's the U-Haul going to be? And what the answer is, on the side and in the rear. And I asked Reggie Reed, and we'll try to get a copy of the DVD from 2010. But Reggie Reed told me very clearly what they pointed to what she, Erin Mannix, pointed to when she said on the side and the rear was over towards Tanner Marsh Road and towards the back of the property. So they told you that that's where the only U-Hauls would be. Their site plan did not have any U-Hauls in the front, and they got approved. And then we have photos showing that there are no U-Hauls there in 2015. And we don't have a day-to-day, but we were able to dig up to show that Mr. Mannix's affidavit is simply false. Your regulations say that intent for abandonment can be shown by any positive act that shows that intent, and the case law says you don't have to take Mr. Mannix's subjective intent. In other words, yeah, I signed the application, but I didn't mean to give up anything. It's not his subjective intent. It's the objective intent of what he did, which was he had his property used not for a dealership anymore, and the front was not used for any display of anything for sale. It was only used for parking. So I submit to you it's clear that they abandoned the use of the display of anything for sale. In my earlier memo, I addressed that when Heller went in 1965, the use did not permit, there's nothing in the use table that permitted the lease or rental of vehicles. The use was the sale of automobiles. And I can brief this later on, but the fact of the matter is automobile has a particular meaning in American English. An automobile is essentially a passenger car. Trucks are a different thing in American English. And so automobile may include Chevy pickup trucks and whatnot, but it certainly doesn't include these box trucks. And Heller Chevrolet never rented any box trucks, never displayed any box trucks out there before 2002. Mannix never displayed them there after 2002 and gave it up in 2010. So then I want to go to the whole point of, was there ever any advertising out there? I don't live in Guilford, never have, but I know what a car lot looks like. And Heller Chevrolet and Mannix Pontiac Chevrolet would have had cars with little maybe decals or chrome things on the trunk that might say Heller or Mannix. They might have had little license plate holders that might have said Heller or Mannix. But the sides of them didn't say $19.95 a day. They didn't say blazoned on each GTO they sold in the 1960s, Heller Pontiac. Didn't say that. They didn't put advertising on their vehicles for display. That's all this that U-Haul wants. Every single truck they rent in America, they want to be an advertisement 24 hours a day and every mile they drive. And they park them out here. So we learned tonight that the argument is that they're reducing the depth nonconformity and the number. I would suggest to you two things there. First of all, I may have gotten it wrong, and correct me if I did. What the engineer said was that there's only 6 feet of landscaping, and that they therefore seem to think that that was illegal use. But if you look in my memo from a year ago, you'll see that back in 1965, it was clear your regulations said that if you display automobiles near the street, you needed 15 feet of landscaping. So if they only put in 6 feet and you do have the plans from back then, by the way, still there, then it wasn't a legal conforming use, it was an illegal use from the very beginning. So they're trying to say, wow, 6 feet, and we're going to get it back to almost 30 feet or something. We should be applauded. They can't start with that 6 feet. It had to have 15 feet of landscaping to begin with to be considered legal. So now what you have is, what I would say is, they've reduced the number of vehicles. They're proposing on reducing the number of vehicles in the front, but they're switching back and forth between parking, which, when it was Grass Island Market, presumably, let's say it would have been from 10 in the morning till 6 at night, maybe longer, 9 in the morning till 8 at night. I think we can probably safely assume it wasn't more than 12 hours a day. So they're planning on, they want 24 hours a day, not to park their customer vehicles, but to display advertising. And you can see that from day to day as you look at what they do right now. They want their advertising in your face, as loud as they can be. It's like the guy who's at the beach with a boombox. You go there to enjoy the beach, and he wants you to enjoy his music. Turn it up loud, listen to my music. That's U-Haul writ in visual. They want a boombox of vision in front of you, and I would suggest to you it does not meet the regulations. They have abandoned it. The regulation that they're asking for now, or they talk about a special exception, or 273.13C, but I quoted that on the first page of my memorandum, and it doesn't say anything about relocating a nonconforming use. It says no nonconforming use of land shall be changed to any use which is substantially different in nature, except a use which is permitted as of right. Well, we've already gone through, they're not permitted as of right to have essentially movable billboards within 50 feet of the street. That's certainly not within any of the signage type of things that this town has come up with. So they're not changing to anything that's as a right to begin with. And then, unless a special permit is granted, pursuant to all of the types of conditions that special permits need, the standards, which they didn't address in their case in chief here at all. And then, under the further finding that the use will have no greater injurious impact. So I would say to you this, the impact that the legal impact that there could have been was the parking for part of each day along an area close to the road. That would have been at most of what the non-conforming use was, because that was approved in 2010. But they don't want parking for part of a day. They want display for 24 hours a day. And I'll repeat what I said before, which is that the non-conforming use never included the things that were for sale or later for rent to have advertising all over them. That was never part of a use that was established. They're just trying to say, if we have 4 vehicles, what we do, how we make those look is our business. And I would suggest to you that's not true. A non-conforming use ought to be interpreted very narrowly. So I'd be happy to come back again and address this. What I would like to do is address a couple of the points that were raised in terms of the presentation. One is that the comment was made about the comparison of 2351 Boston Post Road as a comp here. Proud to say that it's my client's family that built 2351, and they admit it's a very different type of architecture used by that and by this place. The other has to do with traffic. There's been some concern with the opponents of traffic, and I think I'd probably agree that those 400 units aren't going to generate a whole lot of traffic. I have no idea how much. But the rental stuff, maybe it's 66 trips a day, 33 in and 33 out. But think of who those people that are driving in and out are. I've rented a U-Haul truck before, and let me tell you, I don't know how to drive a box truck, but somehow I managed to get to Massachusetts and back without killing myself or anyone else. But imagine this were a nice old-fashioned Guilford and there was the local stable owner. If he's renting out horses to cowboys, they know how to ride the horses. These guys don't ask for cowboys that know how to drive their trucks. You're going to have the ins and outs are not going to be the same in and out that you have from your driveway, and that's a significant traffic question. You're going out onto Route 1, and you've got people some people may be qualified because there may be people that drive trucks all the time that rent them, but there's going to be plenty that know nothing about driving or handling a truck, and they're going to go out onto Route 1. And I think that ought to be taken into your consideration as with respect to the traffic part. Two more things, and that is the appraisal that was done. We have submitted, Mr. Milano submitted an appraisal to you. No, he did not look at half a mile because Boston Post Road LLC's land isn't half a mile away. But he has a qualified appraiser, and that appraiser says within 150 feet, there's going to be a negative stigma type of impact of at least 10% on their property. And the appraiser for U-Haul didn't really look at what the impact of someone nearby would be. He looked at half a mile away. You've got the back, you've got a really wide state right-of-way, and then the other side of that, half a mile north of there, of this property. What's that got to do with it? You could lose a whole lot of statistics in that half-mile radius. But we do have an appraisal there that says that this will have an impact on our residential land. And I think the other great point that was made was everyone here on this commission knows what a village is. And every judge sitting in New Haven knows what a village is. And they know that a 40-foot high storage building does not have the character of a village. And that is a requirement here. It wasn't addressed. It's problematic to me that although you have 2 nights of hearings, the usual procedure is that you put on your case in chief, not that you respond to that. And there was nothing in here that addressed any of the, other than the value, the appraisal that was submitted, nothing that addressed any of the special permit criteria that you have in your regulations. Nothing. So I agree. We'll be back in 2 weeks, and I thank you for the more than 5 minutes you've given me.
2 quick follow-up questions for you. If U-Haul were to say, we will move our trucks back to the 50 feet threshold, would you withdraw your objection for this site?
I haven't looked enough up the objection for the site. No, I think that the objection that the Milanos have has to do, they made it very clear, had just to do with scale of the building and a number of other things. I hope you take seriously that natural grade has a meaning, has a plain meaning in the English language, and it doesn't allow a newcomer to bring in 2 feet of fill and say, well, it's natural what it looks like to me today. That's the natural grade. That's not how you measure natural grade. Their studies show that the natural grade is 2 feet down. They want 40 feet from the present grade, and I think that's a defect. So that's one of the reasons that I don't think I could say we would withdraw it. But what I wanted to say was with respect to the trucks, I don't know what your regs say. I have to relook at them with respect to the notion of advertising even 51 feet back from the road, because that's what this is. That's what these trucks are. And they've done everything they can to not screen them, despite the fact they have screening along the way. They're going to have trees that will grow up to be, surprise, surprise, those branches will be just high enough so that you can see the trucks, because there will be no branches up there. The shrubs will be low enough that they don't cover the trucks. That's not what I would call screening.
My last question was, or it is, where did you get your definition for American automobile? Just because I find that.
I'll be happy to brief you on that because I've done it before. No, but I mean, you go to dictionaries, and the term automobile in America, for example, well, I'll tell you, a great Supreme Court case wasn't the word automobile, but the word motor vehicle. Justice Holmes said, no, a law that says you can't transport motor vehicles across state lines does not apply to an airplane, even though it is a vehicle and it has a motor. But I have done, and I briefed it, I remember, in Clinton, the question of the difference between our term automobile and how it developed. Sorry.
I just wanted to know if you had something on the top of your head. Unless there's any burning response that you have that you don't want to address for the next, you could address all the responses next time around. I don't have any further questions, and I'll entertain a motion to continue.
A lot of reading.
If there's a motion to continue, I will.
I'd like to make a motion to continue.
Okay, second it. Okay, so we're going to continue to the April 18th meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Great, great.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Next up on our agenda, we have an application to receive. Rick Maynor, Nut Plains Park, map 86, lot 63, zone R5, site plan revision to add 8 additional parking spaces, 273-97.
Motion to receive? Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. Special permits, Claremont Remodeling, 541 Sawmill Road, map 85, lot 65, zone R5, special permit, site plan accessory structure over 750 square feet, 3-car garage, 273-36A, receive and set mandatory public hearing 418, to be continued. Okay, to be continued 512. Oh. Moore's Water, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're still doing a meeting here, so if you guys could just be quiet on your way out, that'd be great. Thanks. Armon's 2 Water Street, map 32, lot 43, zone C1, special permit for 7 by 24 foot outdoor seating, section 273-19, receive and set public hearing for 5/2, to be continued at 5/16. All those in favor? Aye, okay. Coastal Area Management Site Plan, Thomas and Mary Louise O'Keefe, 648 Mulberry Point Road, map 10, lot 146, zone R2, Coastal Area Management, installation of stairs and walkway for boat launch access, 27391, set public hearing, receive and set public hearing for 5/2/18.
So moved?
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, David and Janine Braun, 5 Rock Lane, map 10, lot 70, zone R2, Coastal Area Management, installation of a dock and access walkway, 27391, receive and set public hearing for 5/2/18.
Move? So moved?
Second. All those in favor, aye, okay. Subdivisions, John and Kendra Remington, 190 Peddlers Road, map 73, lot 319, zone R5, 3-lot re-subdivisions, receive and set public hearing for 5/2/18.
So moved?
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. We have a mandatory referral from the recommendation of the Board of Selectmen. I think I saw that in here regarding a,
Adjacent piece of property.
Land Acquisition Commission. So I'll make a motion, then we can talk about it. Voted that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission approve a mandatory referral from the Board of Selectmen to purchase for the sum of $496,376 certain real property together with apparatuses thereon known as 52 Church Street, which is located adjacent to the community center. This action is approved based upon a finding that is consistent with the plan of conservation and development. So it looks like the
Next door on the north side here?
Board of Selectmen wants to purchase this property. Why do we have to approve this?
Any real estate purchase is subject to this mandatory referral before it goes to town meeting. And you'll see.
We'll go to town meeting now?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Eventually, you'll see a site plan for parking and use of the house as town offices, I believe. The main idea is to.
More offices, George?
We just approve it.
You need a bigger office?
Yeah, we don't really negotiate.
We don't go to
this
the
yet.
meeting, we just.
This is just a mandatory thing.
Yeah, eventually, I mean, you'll get a site plan application if this all goes forward.
And you go to town hall and complain to them about this application if you have a problem with it.
Right.
Purchase.
So they're gonna have a town meeting anyway, right? So, all we're doing is approving her.
Referring.
And then it's up to them.
All right.
Positively.
So I'll make,
Make a motion to refer? Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
That's it.
correspondence. The Agricultural Society requests the following events to be added to the schedule. June 9th, Strong 5K race, a not-for-profit event in honor of Evan Song, excuse me. Strong. Is it Evan Strong or Evan Song? But it's a strong 5K race?
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know what that means. Okay, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., and then August 25th, class 1956 reunion, 30 people, event to be held in the pavilion from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. It's not really motion, it's just, we're just listing.
They agreed to notice
Yeah,
us
I know,
for
thank you for that
events.
information.
You don't have to approve it.
All right, approval of the bills, can I get a motion to approve the $330.50?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Approval of the minutes, I was here, I'll say that I looked at the minutes, they look substantially complete unless there's any objection.
No.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Abstain.
Okay, can I get a motion?
Before we close?
Yeah.
Can I just ask for a couple of research items for our friends at U-Haul? I'd like a response from Chuck as to whether or not the 50,000 square foot limit, whether or not this building would be defined as retail, and whether or not this prohibition that we have would pertain to the building.
Okay.
I'd like an opinion from Chuck. I did see a planning and zoning sign in front of the current Chevrolet, but there are two lots that we're talking about. Do both lots need to be?
There were two signs. I gave them two signs twice.
Okay, I drove by and I never noticed a sign on the second lot. So, and then, in a lot of cases, you'll receive notice of abutting neighbors having been noticed.
Yeah, we have
Just confirmation that's been done in a list of abutting neighbors.
We get that, right? It's in our file.
Okay.
Chuck, it's going to be at the next meeting, by the way.
Can we get a determination on the question that was raised about the loose fill, what's determined as the average or the original
Grade.
grade?
Yep.
And do you know off the top of your head, because I'm sure this is a very clear answer, what a sign is?
I don't believe that signs on motor
That's what I
vehicles
thought.
constitute signs.
Okay.
I'm quite sure that that's not the case. but-
Okay, I thought that was the case as
In
well.
motor vehicles constitute signs?
On the, do
On
not
the motor
in.
vehicle is
Well, we're
not,
talking about both.
Yeah. How about in?
I'm not,
Because, so, the question is, an enclosed sign or a sign that is outside? Because these signs are going to be inside, in the windshields of these.
So that could be a question we could ask Chuck to look into. Shouldn't
I'm
really-
pretty sure that, the painted signs on motor vehicles, that's not a sign under our zoning code. I mean, obviously, many businesses have trucks with signs on them, those don't constitute signs.
But again, if they took the sign out from behind the windshield and put it on a stick, that'd be a sign. But if they keep it inside the car, if they keep it inside the motor vehicle,
Well, we shouldn't discuss it like that. We can ask the questions, but let's not discuss the actual application. So,
I guess one last, everyone keeps referring to design review of approving this. Do we have minutes from design review saying that they've approved this design?
Yeah.
and they mentioned multiple
Design review met, met for over a year, almost.
is there any way we could get a member from design review to come to our next meeting?
Sure.
I'd love to have some comment from them.
And there are minutes available for all their meetings. No application in our history has been vetted before a design review as extensively as this project.
And I'm sure they love
66 high?
volunteers.
Even more than 66 high. 66 high is in the historic district.
Passed on that.
Yeah. Design review didn't review 66 high.
Related to opinion, this isn't opinion on it.
Yeah. But this project was gone over extensively by them, absolutely.
I'll entertain motions of adjournment.
Do you want to discuss?
I'm sorry, we didn't. I forgot all about the annual meeting. That'll be on your agenda on the 18th, election of officers.
And it doesn't affect, there's no issue, right? Because the only issue would be our self-imposed issue. Okay, all right. With the election of officers.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor?
I was halfway out the door. Jeez.